What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
10 EC. Volume 2 Extra. Guion and Kuina. Advertise here. Sister Guion, can I really become the world's greatest swordsman? The sea breeze blew the hair on the girl's forehead. Kuina lowered her eyes and pinched the corners of her clothes nervously. Her words revealed the girl's inferiority complex. Even though Zoro had enlightened her a lot that night, her father's ruthless words still pierced her heart like a steel gun, making her feel extremely suffocated. Guion looked at the 11-year-old girl next to him, as if he saw himself in the past. At that time, I was just like Kuina, full of confusion about the future. But fortunately, someone broke into her life. Lin Chen was like a beam of light to Guion, breaking through the confusion in her heart. After touching Kuina's head, Guion looked at her with gentle eyes and said, I believe you can do it, and there must be someone who believes in you, right? Kuina was stunned when she heard Guion's words. She couldn't help but think of the green-haired boy in her mind, and then she clenched her fists with a look of determination in her eyes. Well, I want to become the world's greatest swordsman first than him. After flicking Kuina's forehead, Guion's eyes turned into crescent moons and he smiled. Just talking about it won't do. Let me teach you well in the past 2 years. Kuina covered her forehead and the corners of her mouth bulged angrily. I'm not someone who talks casually. As she spoke, Kuina glanced at the 2 long swords on Guion's waist. Is Guion a double sword style? Guion was a little surprised when he heard Kuina's words. That's right, if you want to learn one sword style, I can teach you. Sister, I used to be a master of one sword style. Guion thought that Kuina needed to learn the Ito style. After all, he had always seen Kuina using only a long sword before, but he didn't expect Kuina to shake her head. I want to learn the one sword style, and I also want to learn the 2 sword style. As if she was worried that Guion would misunderstand something, Kuina explained hesitantly. Actually, there is a reason why I learned Nito Ryu. It's because of my family, so I have to prove it to my father in Nito Ryu. But, I'm sorry, only Sister Yuan, I can't say anything about my family yet. Hearing Kuina's strong answer, Guion was startled for a moment, and then showed a fond smile. Okay, no need to apologize, just try to do what you want to do. And keep working hard in this direction. Kuina turned to look at Guion. It was not as expected. She originally thought that Sister Guion would be angry because of this. Guion is a gentle person. With this thought in her mind, Kuina's eyes became a little brighter, and she hugged Guion. Guion patted Kuina's back gently and whispered, there are many sisters in Marine who are learning swordsmanship. Maybe you will become very good friends. There are also many who are as talented as Kuina. You must try hard. I will not be weaker than them. In 2 years, I will become the strongest one. Okay, the most powerful one now is Bojiu. She is a few years older than you. It depends on whether you can defeat her. Good. 2 years later, 2 girls on the marine training ground were slashing at each other crazily. There were many marines surrounding them, all staring at the 2 people on the field with shock in their eyes. Sister Bojiu, I will definitely defeat you this time. Kuina, it's still far from enough. The 2 girls let out coquettish sounds and kept attacking each other with fierce moves. However, it was still possible to see that Kuina was at a disadvantage. After all, Bojiu had trained longer than Kuina, and she also had the same belief in her heart that she was not inferior to Kuina. Naturally, better than Kuina. But Kuina's progress in the past 2 years has really surprised her. Her talent is also extremely high. Coupled with her usual hard work, it will only be a matter of time before she surpasses her in the future. The 2 fought several times in the field, and finally Kuina lay heavily on the ground, her chest heaving violently, and she took a big breath of air. It's such a pity that I haven't surpassed Sister Bojiu in 2 years. You still have a long way to go. You are only 13 years old. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Looking at the hand extended by Bojiu, Kuina grabbed it and stood up. At the same time, she asked, is Guion-san so busy recently? I haven't seen her for a long time. Bojiu nodded and said, she has also been very worried about the Marine 6 Admiral thing recently. That's true, but wouldn't it be better to become a Marine Admiral? Maybe, but Guion told me privately that she doesn't want to be a Marine Admiral. After turning around and looking around, Bojiu pulled Kuina aside and whispered, being a Marine Admiral requires you to accept the orders of the world government unconditionally, and you are also responsible for protecting the celestial dragons. It is very busy. I see, although I still don't quite understand. Seeing Kuina's innocent and confused look, Bojiu tapped Kuina's forehead and said with a smile, okay, nothing happens. Go home quickly. Tomorrow you will set off to return to East Blue. It's been so long. You must miss it very much when you go back. Kuina touched the place where she had just been touched by Bojiu and whispered, it's very comfortable to stay here. I wonder if Sister Guion will come tomorrow. Hearing Kuina's words, Bojiu smiled, if Guion-san doesn't come tomorrow, won't you still have me? I'll drive a warship to take you back. Sister Bojiu was joking again. Listening to Bojo's joking words, a warm current flowed through Kuina's heart, and the disappointment just now was swept away. At the same time, there were quarrels in the top meeting of naval headquarters. Marshal Sengoku, I really think that I am not strong enough. Please allow me to refuse to participate in this arrangement. Gion, now is the time for our marine to exert its strength. The world government has also agreed to this plan. If Dawn continues to be left alone, pirates all over the world will be ready to take action, and the results will be disastrous. At this time, many one admiral can guard an extra sea area. Seahai, the first half of the Grand Line, New World. 6 locations require at least 4 admirals. Even if Seahai is weaker, the vice admirals in this department can still do the job, but the first half of the Grand Line and the New World combined require at least 2 or 3 admirals. The rest must contain Li Xiao, and we can no longer allow them to do whatever they want. Listening to Sengoku's words, Gion bit his lip, his eyes also turned red. Seeing Gion's appearance, Sengoku felt cruel, and continued without changing his expression. We have already decided on the admiral code names for you and Cake, Momosugi Gion. The T-Dolphin Cake, recruited in the Chosen Day and World Recruitment. Let's compete together. Marine Admiral, this title that Gion once longed for has now become her shadow. Even if she knew that Lin Chen was not dead, Lin Chen's fake death was related to the promotion of Marine Admiral. From then on, her in my heart, I began to resist Marine Admiral vaguely. Coupled with the influence of Garp, over time Gion also had the idea that maybe it would not be impossible to stay in the Vice Admiral forever, not to mention that she was still a little far away from the real Admiral. Okay, it's not too late to talk about this later. I'll talk to Gion more. Seeing Gion and Sengoku arguing, Suru couldn't help but stand up. After all, Gion was the child she raised, and it felt very uncomfortable to see Gion sincerely resisting her. At the same time, Suru also regrets very much. Maybe he shouldn't have left Gion with Garp directly in the first place, and now he has more or less fallen into Garp's bad habits. Others in the office have long been accustomed to watching Gion and Sengoku quarreling. Although Gion's strength and achievements have been rising over the years, his character has not changed much. It is common for him to talk back to Sengoku from time to time. Rather than saying that Gion ignored military discipline and talked back to his superiors, it was better to say that his younger generation was dissatisfied with the arrangements of their elders. After all, Gion grew up in Marine. Many people here already treat her as their daughter, so no one holds her accountable. But Kaji on the other side doesn't dare to do this. If he dares to oppose Sengoku's arrangement, let alone what Sengoku will do to him, his colleagues may not treat him well. Besides, joining Marine's 6 admirals plan is not a bad thing for him. He doesn't have Gion's background and has bargaining power. Okay Sengoku, let's do it. I remember that tomorrow is the day when Gion's apprentice returns to East Blue, so let her go back and rest. Maybe she will change her mind when she comes back. Garp, who was picking his nose, said a few words at the right time, which eased a lot of the awkward atmosphere and made everyone present feel relieved. Sengoku looked at Garp and finally sighed. The situation in the world has become so tense now. If it hadn't really reached this point, how could I be willing to put Gion on the front line? Gion returned to her seat without saying a word. She hated the position of Marine Admiral, she hated world government, and she hated celestial dragons. Sengoku looked at Gion and sighed in his heart. If that man was still here, maybe Gion wouldn't have to take on such a heavy responsibility. Maybe the two of them could become models in the Marine and fight together, becoming a good story in the Marine. But it's all if that's all. The next meeting was much simpler, and Jaji naturally became the candidate to be promoted to Admiral. Of course, the premise was to win the final game. During this period, any Vice Admiral who wants to be promoted can participate. The premise is to defeat Cake and Gion, but this is indeed a bit difficult for today's Naval Headquarters Vice Admirals. Garki's talent and strength are not in vain, and Gion Marine's reputation as the greatest swordsman is not false. From the looks of it, if anyone else in the Vice Admiral is qualified, only Garp is the only one. But Garp also has his own things to do. After all, Marine heroes have more responsibilities. Chapter 1 2-year appointment. As the Sea Circle calendar 1512 was coming to an end, a piece of news from Marine shocked the world. Sengoku launched a military recruitment plan from all over the world on the grounds of expanding combat power and rectifying pirates. At the same time, all naval headquarters generals can also participate in this plan, which aims to select 3 new admirals from the best. In addition to selecting new admirals, there are also new requirements for mid-level generals, and the strongest will come first. As soon as the news came out, all forces in the world were shocked and doubtful about it, but what followed was an enthusiastic registration of all kinds of capable people from various countries. The world has been suffering from pirates for a long time. Now, Marine's plan has no clue about his origin. Each one relies on his own ability, which naturally attracts many strong people to participate. After all, Marine's banner is to rectify the pirates. Marine, who has been content with the status quo for many years, now dares to do this. This decision is naturally something that everyone likes to hear. What happened in Mariejois was naturally concealed by the world government. Except for a few people, the rest did not know that major events that shocked the world had happened in Mariejois. A new contest is quietly going on. Dash 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 dash. East Blue, Shimotsuki Village, Ishin Dojo. Hey, green-haired kid, it's too slow. It's too slow. Damn it. Ah. In the middle of the dojo, two people, one tall and one short, were seen sparring with swordsmanship, but anyone with a discerning eye could see that the taller one was obviously full of bad taste, and would hit the opponent's head with the wooden sword in his hand from time to time. Although the green-haired kid was in pain, he still waved the wooden sword in his hand vigorously, looking like he was going to fight to the end. Kid, that's not how swordsmanship works. Lin Chen used his long sword to block the opponent's downward slash. He took advantage of the situation and waved the wooden knife in his hand in a circle, then sent the opponent flying with his backhand. The thin body fell heavily to the ground, which made people feel distressed. Seeing that the other party got up and wanted to continue, Lin Chen quickly waved his hand. Okay, that's it for today's training. After hearing Lin Chen's words, Zoro punched the ground hard, as if venting his powerlessness, but then he patted the dust on his body and bowed solemnly to Lin Chen. Seeing this, everyone around looked at the man in the middle of the dojo, and Long even smiled and said, Koshiro, you have gained a good disciple. Koshiro smiled and said nothing, but he was looking forward to Zoro even more. At this time, several months had passed since the Mariejois incident, and the new year was approaching. After handling the matter of the Fishmen Island, everyone first stayed at Sabayati Archipelago for a while, and then set off back to East Blue after confirming that Marine would not attack again. Lin Chen also bought some specialties that were not available in East Blue for the children, and Shimotsuki Village was the first stop after returning to East Blue. In view of the tense relationship with Marine at this time, Lin Chen did not plan to go to Logue Town this year, so as not to make those guys nervous. The reason why he came to Shimotsuki Village was that Long invited Lin Chen to meet his friends. The Revolutionary Army was also here to replenish food and hold meetings on future policies. On the other hand, Lin Chen also wants to see what kind of little kid Zoro is now in the future, and he is also concerned about Zoro's childhood sweetheart Kuina. What puzzled Lin Chen was that he had not seen the little girl in the past few days, and he gradually felt disappointed. He also wanted to change Kuina's fate, but now it seemed that it was a step too late. And he can't just come up and ask Koshiro where your daughter is, that would make people laugh. Even if the people around him would not doubt his character, it is difficult to guarantee that Koshiro would not draw a sword and kill him on the spot. Therefore, Lin Chen could only establish a good relationship with the children in the dojo in a circumstantial manner, asking who was the strongest person in the dojo at present, but without exception, they all believed that Zoro was the strongest one. During this period, some people also argued that it was not Zoro 2 years ago, which made Lin Chen even more have a bad premonition. If he remembered correctly, it was 2 years ago that Kuina fell down the stairs and died. Suppressing the sadness in his heart, Lin Chen breathed a long sigh of relief. Looking at Zoro who was bowing to him opposite, he still felt strange in his heart. Thank you for teaching me swordsmanship these days. I will definitely surpass her. Listening to Zoro's words, Lin Chen laughed dumbly, but still encouraged. Okay, I believe you can do it. When the sun went down, everyone gathered together happily. During the dinner, they drank, and the conversation naturally turned to Koshiro, the owner of the dojo. According to Long, the Revolutionary Army has been here to supplement things in the past few years, and Koshiro is also very interesting. For many people, he doesn't care about their status. As long as he doesn't do evil or harm the villagers in the village, he will always look gentle, neither humble nor arrogant. Lin Chen also agreed with this point. After all, when he first came to Ishin Dojo, he was worried that Koshiro would have other opinions about him. But in fact, Koshiro had not changed much. He still looked at him gently with a smile. Lin Chen felt a little uncomfortable. Although I don't want to mention my hometown now, it won't bother everyone here. Koshiro took a sip of tea. His gentle look made everyone present feel refreshed, but there was a hidden mystery behind his words. Lin Chen also heard what Koshiro meant. The implication was that with your ability, my background has been revealed clearly, so don't change the topic to me again. Seeing Koshiro's slightly sinister look, Lin Chen rolled his eyes and started the topic. Mr. Koshiro's Ishin Dojo is so big. Is there a good successor in the future? I think Zoro is pretty good, but he is not your child. After taking a sip of tea, Lin Chen was making plans in his mind. No matter what, he had to inquire carefully before hearing the news of Kuina's death. Even if he really died and wanted to be resurrected with his ability, it's not a difficult task. Speaking of which, it depends on the competition between the two children at the end of the year. I think Kuina will be back soon. Puff. After hearing Koshiro's words, Lin Chen spurted out a sip of tea. Fortunately, Monet's thoughts moved, and the tea turned into snow crystals and disappeared. Seeing everyone staring at him, Lin Chen was a little embarrassed, but he couldn't help but complain crazily in his heart. What kind of showdown in the underworld is this? Is it possible that there are still souls in this world? Koshiro looked at Lin Chen and suddenly remembered something, and said, I think you don't seem to know who Kuina is. She is my beloved daughter. Lin Chen wiped the corners of his mouth, and even though he had many questions in his heart, he still asked. I see, but does this have anything to do with the inheritance of Yishao Dojo? Koshiro patiently explained. Speaking of which, it is also my problem. The East Blue naval battle 2 years ago must have been caused by Your Excellency Dawn. Everyone was a little confused after hearing Koshiro's answer. What does this have to do with that incident? That's true, but, Koshiro shook his head and said, we had never seen each other at that time, but many pirates fled back. In order to prevent them from disturbing Shimotsuki village, I took Kuina and Zoro to the island. Just when I was about to take action, I met 2 Marines. Marine. Everyone was a little confused as to why this was related to Marine. You should have heard of those 2 Marines, Marine Hero Vice Admiral Garp and Marine's first swordsman Guion Vice Admiral. Lin Chen's ears suddenly perked up when he heard the names of these 2 people, and he listened carefully to Koshiro's next story. The night before I took Kuina and I to stop the pirates, Kuina and I had a fight. At that time, I didn't think girls could become the strongest in the world. You must know that as age increases, women's physical strength will become weaker than male, so even though Kuina was much stronger than Zoro at the time, I still didn't think she could inherit the dojo. I don't know what happened to Kuina that night. I think it might have something to do with Zoro. By the next day, Kuina was back to her usual self, and her eyes were much firmer. Then we met Vice Admiral Garp and Guion Vice Admiral while fighting pirates, and Kuina also learned that Guion Vice Admiral was the world's #1 female swordsman, so she yearned for Guion Vice Admiral, and she also got accredited by Guion Vice Admiral. Although I still didn't agree with Kuina's dream at the time, it's ridiculous to think about it now. Maybe it's the parents' responsibility to fully support their children's dreams. If we don't believe in our children, I really can't imagine Kuina's dream back then. How disappointed must be in my heart. A lot happened later. Perhaps in order to prove something to me, Kuina made a 2-year agreement with me to compete with Zoro in swordsmanship 2 years later. And Ms. Guion is really fooling around. She took Kuina away and said she wanted to help Kuina prove herself. Maybe Ms. Guion doesn't recognize what I said in her heart. Anyway, the 2-year agreement is coming soon. Counting the days, it's still a week away. After listening to Koshiro's narration, everyone was still thinking about the story, but Lin Chen had mixed feelings in his heart. He never thought that this story was actually related to Guion. Lin Chen and Guion, Zoro and Kuina, is there some fate that connects these people together? But with expectations for Guion and curiosity about Zoro's future mixed in his heart, Lin Chen said, in that case, let's stay here for a week, and let me teach Zoro some swordsmanship this week. How about it, Mr. Koshiro, you can satisfy some of my bad tastes, ha ha ha. Rayleigh and others looked at Lin Chen with strange expressions. Koshiro didn't know the relationship between Lin Chen and Guion, but they knew it very well. They didn't expect young people today to be so good at playing. Koshiro pushed up his glasses. He didn't particularly care about this matter. After missing her for 2 years, he also understood what Kuina really wanted. He didn't care about the successor to the dojo. Because Zoro and Kuina's dreams will not stop at the dojo, he knows this very well, the future belongs to them. Okay, then please take your time. Seeing Koshiro agree to him, Lin Chen felt happy in his heart, but there was a smirk on his face. In that case, let me give Zoro special devil training. I will let him remember me for the rest of his life. Looking at Lin Chen's appearance, Koshiro still doubted whether he had done something wrong. Why didn't the man in front of him look like the legendary strong man at all? Chapter 2: The Upcoming Duel. Clang. Ding. The sound of swords clashing constantly came from the Ishin dojo. Lin Chen was holding the Kusanagi sword and kept feeding Zoro with moves. Although Zoro is only 11 years old at this time, he has already shown strong talent in swordsmanship. Instead of continuing to train basic physical fitness, Lin Chen plans to teach him some simple sword skills first. And Zoro did not disappoint him. He learned all the moves in a short time and is now mastering them. Okay, the meal is ready. Monet's reminder came from the distance. When Zoro heard it, he fell to the ground and gasped for air. Teacher, I still feel like I haven't mastered that last move. Seeing Zoro's appearance, Lin Chen nodded with satisfaction and said, it's normal for you to master this move slowly. After all, it is my original two-sword skill. With Lin Chen's words echoing in his ears, Zoro stared blankly at the sky. One day he also hoped that he could create his own moves. Okay, it's time to eat. Monet was holding a bowl and spoon with a rather sulky look on his face. Ever since he called them to eat, Lin Chen didn't take themselves seriously and were still immersed in their own world. It seemed like it was time to teach them a lesson. Boom, boom. After giving each of Lin Chen and Zoro a violent shudder, Lin Chen and Zoro then remembered that Monet was standing next to them, so they could only sneak into the room angrily. By the afternoon, 3 letters arrived at the Ishin dojo at the same time. 2 of the letters were related to Lin Chen, while the other was related to Koshiro. Lin Chen opened a letter, and the clever handwriting appeared on the paper. After Lin Chen finished reading the letter, he couldn't help but smile. Brother Lin Chen, whose letter is this? Lin Chen picked up sugar with one hand and said with a smile, "It's your sister Perona. That little girl is very anxious now. She is just waiting for us to go back." Yeah, I'm going back to play with Sister Perona." Hearing Lin Chen's words, Sugar clapped her hands happily, her eyes turned into crescent moons, and she was looking forward to the day of going home. The other letter was somewhat beyond Lin Chen's expectations. He didn't expect the red-haired Shanks guy to send him a letter. After Lin Chen read the contents of the letter, he roughly understood what was going on. It turns out that the red-haired man has been taking Yuta around since he left Windmill Village, and now they are in a country called Elegia. Lin Chen had heard of this country a little before. It was a country famous for its music. The letter told Lin Chen that they were resting in Elegia at this time, and Yuta was about to participate in a grand music show. Lin Chen was hereby invited to take everyone from Windmill Village to Elegia to watch Yuta's performance. What's interesting is that Shanks told Lin Chen that he also sent the same letter to the Mahawk guy. He didn't know if Mahawk would go to Elegia. Putting away the letter, Lin Chen already had a plan in mind. Nowadays, Marine is busy with Marine 6 Admiral affairs, and she and Rayleigh have just experienced a big battle, and they really need to relax. Take this opportunity to go to Elegia and get together. After all, this kind of opportunity is very rare. Lin Chen also told everyone about this, and Rayleigh and others agreed. During this period, Rayleigh also planned to go back to Sabayati Archipelago to bring his old sweetheart over. This kind of opportunity was rare for an old man like Rayleigh. At the same time, the content of the letter in Koshiro's hand made Lin Chen's heart beat faster involuntarily. "It's a letter from Miss Guion. She told me it would arrive tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it." After hearing Koshiro's words, everyone turned their eyes to Lin Chen, and the meaning in their eyes was very ambiguous. Lin Chen also quickly adjusted his condition. He also missed Guion very much, which he had not seen for 2 years, but he didn't know what Guion had become now. Zoro on the side noticed something was wrong with Lin Chen, and thought that Lin Chen was worried that he could not defeat Kuina, so he looked at Lin Chen with firm eyes and said, "Teacher. Don't worry, I will definitely defeat Kuina. I have already lost 2000 once. I will never lose to her this time." Seeing Zoro's confident look, Lin Chen didn't want to undermine his confidence, so he could only say, "Okay, I believe you." But in fact, after these 7 days of training, Lin Chen has figured out Zoro's skills. After all, Zoro is only an 11-year-old boy now, and his abilities are still very limited. Koshiro no longer cares much about the successor to the dojo, and his guidance to Zoro in the past 2 years can only be said to be qualified. But based on Kuina's stronger character, coupled with Marine's environment, Lin Chen estimated that Kuina should be stronger than the current Zoro. However, Lin Chen didn't have any expectations for Zoro. He wanted to see Guion's reaction when Zoro used his own moves. After all, Guion knew what Lin Chen taught Zoro, and he would be able to see through Zoro's path at a glance. The next day, Lin Chen was hiding in the woods by the sea, and a warship on the horizon in the distance was very clear. Lin Chen looked at the warship motionless, but he didn't see the familiar figure. Instead, he saw Bojiu, whom he hadn't seen for several years. After searching carefully for a long time, he could not see the figure. Lin Chen could only quietly return to Yixin Dojo. Unexpectedly, Crocodile laughed at him as soon as he returned, who said last night that he had no trouble in his heart. "Why did someone run away so early in the morning? Are you staying at the beach?" Seeing the sarcasm on Crocodile's lips, Lin Chen said harshly, "Why did I go out for a walk and end up squatting?" "Ah, yes, do you want to look in the mirror and look at the leaves on your head?" Okay, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense to you, so hurry up and go, you go to the town to play, don't delay my good deeds." Crocodile wanted to light a cigar, but looking at the many children in the dojo, he still didn't take out the cigar. Instead, he looked at Lin Chen and said, Okay, I won't disturb the romantic mood between you two." Looking at Crocodile's leaving figure, Lin Chen felt relieved. If there are too many people staying at Shinshin Dojo, there is no guarantee that they will be discovered, and then they will not be able to surprise Guion. Looking back at Zoro, this guy looked nervous. Lin Chen could only walk over and comfort him. "Relax. As a swordsman, you must maintain a good attitude at all times." Yes. Seeing Zoro's serious look, Lin Chen felt helpless, turned around and entered the room, waiting for the arrival of Guion and Kuina. Chapter 3 Famous Swordsmen Gather Together. As time passed by, Lin Chen stayed quietly in the room, and soon there was a noise outside. "Father. Zoro." A female voice as crisp as an oriole came, and Kuina trotted into the Isshin Dojo, with 2 marine generals following behind her. One person is tall, with a devilish figure and delicate cheeks. His fair skin is rosy, and his peach-like lips look extremely alluring. But the cloak flapping in the wind behind her reveals this person's unusual identity. The Marine General's cloak makes her eyebrows show a bit of heroism, and she is none other than Momosuke Guion, who has become famous in Marine recently. Although the figure of the other person is not as beautiful as Guion's, she is petite and small, almost hidden in the cloak behind her. She looks like a girl next door, and even strangers can't help but feel good about her. It's exactly Haoju has been following Gion for many years and was recently promoted to Marine Rear Admiral. The two of them followed Kuina into the Ishin dojo. As soon as they entered the door, they saw a green-haired kid staring at them eagerly. Watching Kuina and the three of them enter the dojo, Zoro was in a daze for a moment, but he quickly recovered. Although he was very happy to see Kuina again, Zoro said bravely, "Kuina, you are finally back. Do you remember the promise we made 2 years ago?" Hearing Zoro's words, Kuina opened her eyes wide, as if she had seen something extraordinary, and then she moved closer to Zoro. Looking at Kuina who was so close, Zoro was stunned for a moment. A girl's fragrance rushed into Zoro's nose, making his face turn red instantly and he didn't dare to take a breath. "Hey, you. Why are you so close? Do you want to deny it?" Kuina ignored Zoro and suddenly laughed after observing Zoro carefully. Zoro has grown a lot taller. Zoro looked at Kuina's smiling face and was stunned. It seemed that he hadn't seen Kuina smile so happily for a long time. Feeling his heartbeat speeding up, Zoro jumped back quickly, then pulled out the long knife from his waist and bit one in his mouth. "Don't try to change the subject. I have been waiting for this day for 2 years. I will never lose this time." Kuina looked at Zoro's serious look and suddenly smiled. "Zoro, why are you so serious? Don't you miss me after not seeing me for 2 years?" Hearing Kuina's words, Zoro froze immediately, and then hesitantly said, "Yes, I miss you a little, but don't forget our agreement." "I didn't forget." While Zoro was stunned, Kuina had already walked up to Zoro and threw him to the ground with a back throw. "Hey, you lost to me for the 2002nd time. Damn it, you violated the law. It's the same as 2 years ago." Zoro, who was lying on the ground, roared unwillingly. He thought he would make a lot of progress, but he didn't expect to suffer the same loss as 2 years ago. Koshiro also walked out of the room at this time, and was stunned when he saw Kuina who had changed a lot in front of him. It is said that women have undergone a transformation. Kuina has grown very fast in the past 2 years. In every aspect, she is so different from 2 years ago that Koshiro felt a little strange when he saw Kuina. "Father." Kuina was obviously very happy to see Koshiro, but she still bowed respectfully to Koshiro like she did 2 years ago. "You are back and you have grown up a lot." Koshiro watched Kuina let out a long sigh of relief, her face still looking gentle, but only he could know the joy in his heart. "Mr. Koshiro, long time no see." Gion also greeted Koshiro. "Miss Gion, I haven't seen you for a long time. I wonder what my daughter has become like in the past 2 years." "Don't worry, it's more than enough to inherit your dojo." "Really? That's really exciting." Koshiro looked at Kuina. Although he missed Kuina very much in his heart, his mood was not shown on his face at the moment he saw Kuina. Although the strong Kuina also missed her father in her heart, she did not express it. Lin Chen stayed in the room, and he also heard Gion's voice, which was no different from 2 years ago. The excitement in the fantasy all turned into something called peace of mind, which took root in Lin Chen's heart. Gion's voice seemed to have magic power, making Lin Chen's heart gradually calm down, and also soothed his tense heart after the war. Heartstrings. Gion outside the room glanced at the room thoughtfully. She seemed to notice something just now, but soon she was attracted by Kuina and Zoro. "Come on. The 2002nd duel. That's right, that's 2003 times. You just lost to me again." Hateful. Koshiro looked at this scene and couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Perhaps this was what he wanted most. Gion said after seeing the two children so energetic. "I originally wanted to wait until tomorrow to duel." No. The two children spoke at the same time and rejected the proposal. Kuina looked at Gion and said with firm eyes, "I have been waiting for this day for a long time." Zoro on the side looked at Kuina's resolute look and showed no sign of weakness. However, he looked left and right, finally focusing on Koshiro, and said in a decent manner, "I have been waiting for this day for a long time." "Got it." Koshiro's mouth twitched slightly, and he finally sighed. "I didn't expect you would take my words so seriously 2 years ago." After a pause, Koshiro looked at Kuina solemnly, and then said apologetically, "Kuina, what happened 2 years ago was my fault. I'm sorry. It was my fault as a father that I couldn't support your dream." Kuina obviously didn't expect Koshiro to apologize for her, and was a little overwhelmed for a moment. In her impression, her father had always been gentle and not too strict with her. To be precise, it was because he had too high demands on himself. Because she never knew what her father thought of her, she could only work hard to let her father know her. Kuina, as his daughter, naturally has extremely strong swordsmanship. And Kuina is indeed the same. Before she was 11 years old, she was always the strongest disciple in Ishin Dojo. Even the extremely talented Zoro was always defeated by her. But everything collapsed that night. She thought she was her father's pride, but what her father said, female swordsmen will never become the best in the world due to physical limitations, severely hit her. Is it possible that because she is a girl, she will do what her father said? She was unwilling to accept that the goal she had been striving for was denied by her most trusted father. This almost made her collapse, but fortunately Zoro's enlightenment made her feel better. However, in the subsequent competition with Zoro, Kuina has found that it is increasingly difficult for her to win. Perhaps like her father said, one day she will be easily surpassed by Zoro. At this moment, the world's #1 female swordsman appeared beside her, and she also proposed to accept her as her apprentice. After repeated considerations, Kuina left the Isshin dojo. Since her father denied her, she must prove that she is right and she will always be stronger than Zoro. But at this time Koshiro's apology made Kuina confused about what to do. She thought she walked out, but when her father apologized to her, she was confused again. She didn't understand why her father changed her degree. At this moment, Gion put his hand on Kuina's shoulder. As a swordsman, you must strengthen your beliefs at all times. Kuina, let go and fight. This time is not to prove to your father, but to prove to yourself. Let me take a look at your performance in the past 2 years. What has become of Sweat? Hearing Gion's encouragement, Kuina's eyes became clear and she bowed to her father. Father, what you said back then was right. Female swordsmen are really inferior to male swordsmen in terms of physical strength. I was just not ready to accept the reality. Now I have found my own direction. I think work hard to find that impossible opportunity. After saying all this, Kuina looked at Koshiro with firm eyes. Father, do you still have my Hiyuan? Koshiro looked at Kuina in a daze, and suddenly smiled bitterly. If you couldn't support your daughter's dream at the beginning, why don't you still support her now? Here you are, I've been keeping it. Koshiro handed the text to Kuina, but he didn't expect that Kuina took out a sword from Gion's hand. It was one of Gion's swords, Kinpira. Double sword style. Koshiro obviously didn't expect Kuina to use the double sword style, which surprised him. After all, the double sword style has an inseparable connection with their Shimotsuki family. Zoro on the side has been staring at Kuina since Koshiro apologized to Kuina, and he couldn't help but stand up at this moment. Don't think you are the only one who has been working hard. I have trained myself crazily in the past 2 years. Even if my teeth are broken. Even if I meet a wild beast. Even if it is windy and rainy. I have never slacked off. I must win. The 2003rd time. Zoro's eyes burst out with a strong fighting spirit, and the veins on his forehead popped out. And he also pulled out the Kusanagi sword that Lin Chen gave him from his waist, and the other 2 were ordinary long swords in the dojo. Gion looked at Zoro's appearance, and his heart seemed to be touched, and he handed over the other knife on his waist. And this sword is the Jingjae that Lin Chen once used, and it is now one of Gion's swords. Use this knife, otherwise there will be no suspense in this duel. Zoro looked at Gion blankly. The big sister in front of him would actually lend him her sword. Obviously he also knew that an ordinary long sword would be at a disadvantage against someone like Wado Ikimonji. Why are you still standing there? I don't have a third one. Forget it. After hearing Gion's words, Zoro reacted, glanced at Kuina and Koshiro from the corner of his eye, and finally took Jingjae solemnly. Well, maybe I can lend this knife to Zoro. Bojiu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up to remind him. Gion, who was standing by him, patted his head and then woke up. Why did you forget this knife? The sharp knife has 21 skills, Chu Shui. Seeing Bojiu take out the autumn water, Koshiro's eyes shrank for a moment. I went to get this sword back when you were promoted to Rear Admiral, Bojiu. Although Chu Shui should have been taken away by me and Mr. Garp, in the end the world government only gave us Jingjae. Fortunately, you were promoted to Rear Admiral. As a newcomer with great potential, I took this opportunity to take it back and give it to you as a promotion gift. As he said this, Gion handed Chushui to Zoro again, his eyes full of warning. Remember not to drool on it. Zoro swallowed nervously, and then took the autumn water, so that his 3-sword style equipment could be considered complete. At this moment, Kuina and Zoro are also standing opposite each other. They have been waiting for this competition for a long time. The battle is about to break out. Chapter 4 Beast Hunting vs Collapsing Mountain. In the Isshin dojo, Zoro and Kuina stood opposite each other, and a chilling atmosphere gradually filled the place. As soon as Gion started shouting, the 2 of them rushed towards each other instantly. The moves used by the 2 are still the same as those 2 years ago, but they have a lot more charm. Zoro swung the 3 long knives faster and faster. Seeing this, Kuina could only catch up to Zoro's rhythm. The 2 swords kept colliding, and there was a faint sword energy that kept shooting out. Gion, who was watching the battle, couldn't help but frown when she saw this scene. Although the 2 of them seemed to be unorganized, she could feel that Zoro's momentum was gradually rising, and he was probably using this to build momentum. Looking at Kuina's back, Gion didn't believe that Kuina hadn't noticed that swordsmen have always had a much better sense of crisis, and Zoro's current state was obviously preparing moves. Just when Zoro's momentum was about to reach its highest level, Kuina's moves suddenly became weird, giving people a feeling of powerlessness. Sword flowing water. Zoro, who was attacking Kuina with increasing intensity, became extremely uncomfortable at this time. The strength in his body was like hitting cotton, and the momentum that had been rising at the beginning gradually slowed down. If he continues like this, he will definitely not be able to exert the most perfect effect with his moves. I have to go faster. I can't fall into her rhythm. Thinking of this, Zoro rushed towards Kuina desperately, and the two knives in his hands kept spinning, as if he wanted to get close to force Kuina to change her sword skills. However, Zoro, who was so focused, did not notice a slight smile on the corner of Kuina's mouth. Too immature. Ito Ryu Thunder Slash. A powerful sword energy emitted from Kuina's hand. It was said to be sword energy, but it was still far from a real lightning strike. However, if it hit Zoro, it would also cause him considerable injuries. Hateful. Seeing a sword energy flying towards him, Zoro could only give up the attack. 3 knives were blocked in front of him at the same time. Even so, his figure kept retreating, and his previous efforts were in vain. I didn't expect that Kuina has learned so many sword skills. Can I defeat her with just the moves my master taught me? With this thought in his mind, Zoro's movements became hesitant, and Kuina saw all of this. Hey, are you cowardly now, Zoro? Hearing Kuina's sharp shout, Zoro quickly shook his head. I won't be afraid of you. I must win. Taking a deep breath, Zoro regained his composure and rushed towards Kuina. The two fought again, during which Zoro gradually discovered that Kuina's moves were somewhat familiar. Isn't this the move that Master used to attack me in the 7 heavens? With a thought in his mind, Zoro began to carefully observe Kuina's moves. Soon he discovered the mystery, which was almost the same as the move Lin Chen used to attack him 7 days ago. If that was the case, then he would be able to deal with it much more calmly. But he also discovered some differences. Compared with the moves that Lin Chen fed him for 7 days, Kuina's sword skills were more feminine and did not have Lin Chen's fierce aura of wide open and close. But this is of no importance. Basically, 80% of their moves are very similar. As time went by, Zoro became calmer from the initial panic. He has gradually become familiar with Kuina's moves and routines, and began to appear to be more comfortable with them. Gion's eyes outside the court began to look strange, and he looked at Zoro from time to time. If this little guy has not been exposed to her two-sword style, then Zoro's talent would be too terrifying. He can gradually become familiar with Kuina's rhythm after just fighting for a while. It would not be good if it continues like this. Kuina on the field was not doing well at this time either. On the one hand, she was losing her physical strength rapidly. On the other hand, Zoro could narrowly avoid her moves every time. It seemed as if he knew her attacks in advance. No, I have to fight quickly. I have already released 2 sword skills before. If I continue like this, I will not have enough physical strength. After gathering his attention, Kuina instantly accelerated his attack speed, and at the same time, there was a faint light on the 2 long knives. Ping, pong. The crisp sound of clashing swords kept ringing. After Kuina accelerated the pace, Zoro seemed a little weak even if he wanted to catch up. Fortunately, his physical strength was well preserved at this time. And he also knew what it meant for Kuina to speed up at this time. I'm afraid the next move would be Kuina's ultimate move. Thinking of this, Zoro also felt a little impatient. The previous move was interrupted. If he wanted to use it again, it would not be easy. Without the step of accumulating power, the move would not pose much threat to Kuina. Looking around, Zoro finally set his sights on the roof of the Ishin dojo and had a plan in mind. At this time, Kuina's swords became heavier and heavier, as if something was awakening from the 2 long swords. Seeing that she was almost ready, Kuina immediately rushed towards Zoro, so fast that Zoro's pupils shrank. Even Bojiu was amazed at how quickly he saw Kuina. It seems it won't be long before Kuina masters shaving. Gion looked at Kuina, her beautiful eyes getting brighter. If Kuina used that move, the outcome might be determined. She should be ready to enter the field at any time to guard against accidents. However, the next scene overturned everyone's understanding. Zoro suddenly turned his back to Kuina and jumped crazily towards the roof. Hey, don't run. Kuina was a little angry when she saw this. She had finally prepared her moves. Could it be that Zoro was a little scared when he saw her moves? However, Zoro did not run away as they imagined. Instead, he stood on the roof more than 10 meters above the ground. Taking a deep breath, Zoro placed the 2 long knives vertically on his left chest. Looking at Kuina on the ground, Zoro jumped down without hesitation. At the same time, an indomitable momentum was also displayed in Zoro. Want to use this to build momentum again? It's just the right time. Seeing Zoro coming straight towards her, Kuina was not timid. She also faced Zoro with both swords, and their moves exploded at the same time. 2 swordsman style, beast hunting. Sword style collapse of the mountain. 2 invisible beasts ran out from Kuina's swords, and Zoro also slashed at Kuina with force. Boom! An invisible wave erupted from the weapons of the 2 men, followed by a dazzling white light. The powerful fluctuations made the surrounding trees rustle, and even some not so thick tree trunks were directly cut off by the fluctuations. When everything settled, the figures of the 3 people gradually became clear. Chapter 5 Soothing the Soul. It hurts. Gion's sister, it hurts me too. The smoke cleared, and Gion was seen holding Kuina and Zoro's ears with both hands, looking rather sulky. You two are so outrageous. Kuina, is this how beast hunting is used? You use long-range sword skills as melee combat, which will drain your stamina even more. How did you learn in the past 2 years? After saying Kuina, Gion suddenly stared at Zoro again, and his gaze made Zoro break into a cold sweat. And you, Beng Yamamoto is a swordsman who can move forward in a wide range of ways. If you and Kuina go head to head, one of you is destined to be injured. Judging from the aftermath of your fight just now, if you don't control it well, you may become disabled. Wait, why did you collapse the mountain? Gion said, turning to look at Koshiro. Noticing Gion's sharp gaze, Koshiro twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "This has nothing to do with me. Maybe it was created by Zoro's extraordinary talent. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? Quote. Not getting an answer from Koshiro, Gion could only focus on Zoro again, trying to see something from him. As far as I know, there are only 2 people who can use this move, except for my 2-sword style. Thinking of the other person, Gion was stunned for a moment, then dropped Zoro and Kuina's ears, turned his head and looked around for something. Panic appeared in his eyes for the first time. Gion-sama, what's wrong? Hajiu looked at Gion on the side and looked confused. Gion, who had always been mature and steady, now became a little distressed. Where? Gion's eyes gradually turned red as he kept asking questions in his mind. He searched everywhere but still couldn't find the figure of that person. Touching the necklace around his neck, Gion turned to look at Zoro and asked eagerly, "Did a big brother teach you this? Where are others?" Zoro looked at Gion blankly, but his eyes were behind Gion. "Hey, Sister Gion, long time no see, I miss you so much." Lin Chen gently hugged Gion from behind and buried his head in Gion's hair, breathing in the fragrance that he had missed for a long time. Feeling the warmth on his back and the arms on his chest, Gion's strength was as strong as paper, and tears welled up in his eyes. Who are you? Let go of Sister Gion. 2 voices sounded at the same time, and Bojiu and Kuina looked at the 2 of them in disbelief. They had never thought that a man would dare to hold Gion so openly. Listening to the words of the 2 people, Gion felt shy at first, but then he felt extremely sweet and surprised in his heart. Lin Chen ignored the 2 of them, looked at Koshiro aside and said, "I'll leave those 2 little guys to you." Hearing Lin Chen's words, Gion also understood and turned to Bojiu and said, "Bojiu, you go back to the warship and wait for me, and then return to Marineford another day." Hajiu stared at Gion blankly, his eyes full of disbelief. Gion-san has always been a single person in Marine, and she has been chased by countless people. Although she didn't know Gion-san's past, she had never seen Gion-san showing such a girlish attitude since she started following her. Lin Chen turned his back to Bojiu. He didn't want Bojiu to know his face now, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble again. Gion turned around and looked at the familiar face that he had longed for, and all the worries in his heart disappeared. The uneasiness and anxiety caused by Marine 6 Admiral's affairs calmed down at this moment. Lin Chen lowered his head and looked at Gion gently, and said softly, "Go out for a walk." Gion snuggled into Lin Chen's arms and nodded gently, the meaning of which was naturally self-evident. Holding Gion tightly, Lin Chen jumped lightly and suddenly flew high into the sky. The 2 of them turned into a black spot and disappeared in the sky, leaving only the 4 of them standing in the dojo. Ahem. Koshiro coughed slightly and looked at Kuina for a moment. "It's getting late. You 2 have just finished competing. Go and have a good rest. Let's have dinner together in the evening. Maybe Kuina, you can make new friends." Kuina glanced at Koshiro in confusion, but chose to obey her father's words, pulled Zoro and ran into the room. Then Koshiro set his sights on Bojiu and said with a gentle expression, "Where is this Ms. Marine? Why don't we stay together?" Bojiu shook his head and said, "Thank you for your kindness. I still need to return to the warship to handle matters, so I won't stay any longer." Yeah, Koshiro was stunned. Bojiu stood up and came to Chu Shui, preparing to go back with the saber. "I have a merciless request." Koshiro's words rang out again, and Bojiu stopped walking. "Can you tell me more about the origin of your knife?" Holding the autumn water, Bojiu glanced at Koshiro in surprise. Koshiro explained, "I have always liked famous swords. Now that I have met the legendary Chu Shui, I naturally want to know more about it." Bojiu thought for a while and realized that this was not a difficult matter, so he naturally told Chu Shui's story. And what she knew about Chu Shui was all told to her by Gion. "Speaking of which, I am not the owner of this knife. The previous owner was Marine Vice Admiral Lin Chen. But he has passed away." Speaking of Lin Chen, Bojo's eyes dimmed. Lin Chen. This name seems familiar. Koshiro looked a little reminiscing, he seemed to have heard of this name before. Yes, the original Marine genius was a very good Marine. But what's wrong? Bojiu looked at the owner of the ordinary kendo gym in front of her and hesitated whether to tell him the truth. After thinking about it, she finally said, "Lin Chen Vice Admiral was killed by Kaido." What? Koshiro's restraint suddenly widened, and at this moment he also remembered about Lin Chen. It was because they heard the news about Kaido that they paid attention to Lin Chen, and they were a little sad when they learned that the young man died from serious injuries after the battle with Kaido. "I will definitely avenge this. I will kill Kaido." Seeing the girl in front of him with a look of hatred, Koshiro said nothing. Bojiu also realized that she was a little out of character and continued to tell the story of Chu Shui. When Koshiro understood the whole thing, he couldn't help but sigh. I see. It was a little strange to hear Koshiro's tone of voice. It seemed that Koshiro's tone had something to do with Chu Shui. Thanks to Miss Bojiu for telling me, my wish has been granted. It's easy, no need to be polite. Watching Bojo's leaving figure, Koshiro focused his gaze on the 4 famous swords beside him, and felt sad in his heart. Today, 5 famous knives appeared in my place in one day. When did famous knives become as common as cabbage? Lin Chen on the other side was flying in the air with Gion non-stop. Lin Chen didn't have a specific destination. He just wanted to enjoy the time the two of them were alone, and the same was true for Gion. Holding Karen in his arms and flying continuously, Lin Chen felt waves of heat in his heart. Soon they came to a beach. The sunset looked bright red at this time, half on the sea and half under the sea. The burning clouds on the horizon reflected on Gion's face, complementing Gion's blushing complexion. Lin Chen couldn't help but fall into it when he lowered his head to look down. Woo! Looking at Gion's misty eyes in his arms, Lin Chen lowered his head and kissed her without hesitation. Feeling the fiery aura emanating from Lin Chen's body, Gion's heartbeat continued to accelerate. After an unknown amount of time, a long silk thread connected their lips, emitting crystal light. Looking at the sunset in the distance, Gion sat quietly on the beach, while Lin Chen lay on Gion's knees. Gently stroking Lin Chen's hair, Gion gradually calmed down. Gion-san. I can't see your face. He didn't understand what Lin Chen meant, but Gion looked down and quickly understood. Look for a fight. Still so glib. Hey, Gion-san. Kiss me some more. Quote. Gion gently lowered his head and kissed Lin Chen's lips. Lin Chen felt the sweet smell and immediately understood the taste. The two sat on the beach and immersed themselves in it for a long time. It wasn't until Gion was out of breath that Lin Chen finally gave up. Gion-san. Nothing. Gion-san. This time, before Lin Chen finished speaking, Gion had already hugged Lin Chen tightly and patted Lin Chen's back gently. It's okay, I'm still with you. Hearing Gion's words, Lin Chen's tears flowed out unsatisfactorily. Ever since he destroyed Annie's lobby and received the news from New World, Lin Chen's spirit has been tense. If he makes a wrong step in the future, he will never be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. He even witnessed Crocodile's death. Crocodile was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Sugar's 2 children fell into fear. Monet and Rosinante were kidnapped and Mariejois was brutally tortured. Fortunately, he saved them, but the physical and mental pain they caused could not be erased. Lin Chen also knew this, and he blamed himself very much for failing to protect everyone. At the moment when he was embraced by Gion, he could no longer hold back his tears. If he failed to save everyone, he couldn't imagine what he would do after returning to Windmill Village. Lin Chen is very strong, but his heart is also very weak. He can abandon his life for his partners and face the most powerful organization in the world alone, but he will also shed tears for fear of losing his partners, especially those partners who have been killed by him. Treat it as family. It's okay. It's okay. Gion's gentle voice continued to ring in Lin Chen's ears, and continued to soothe the pain in Lin Chen's heart. Gion-san. Thanks. What are you talking about? I'm still waiting for you to marry me. Chapter 6 never changed. Advertise here. When evening fell, Lin Chen and Gion also returned to the Ishin dojo. Crocodile looked at the two people holding hands and joked, "Are the young couple willing to come back?" Hearing Crocodile's words, everyone burst into laughter. Kuina ran to Lin Chen with a look of surprise and looked at it carefully. Are you the master of that guy Zoro? Good. Lin Chen smiled faintly, and just when he wanted to touch Kuina's head, she quickly dodged him and looked at him with strange eyes. I didn't expect Sister Gion's sweetheart to be you. Damn it. Seeing Kuina looking at him with her little mouth wrinkled, Lin Chen smiled. Unexpectedly, the child was jealous. At the dinner table, everyone was an old acquaintance, changing glasses and drinking happily, it was so lively. During this period, Lin Chen also mentioned the letter sent by Shanks, regarding the invitation to Lin Chen to attend a concert in Elegia. After listening to Lin Chen's story about Elegia, Gion's eyes sparkled with curiosity. How about you? Do you want to come with me for 2 days and just relax? Looking at Lin Chen who was inviting her in front of him, Gion felt warm in his heart. After all kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, he shook his head gently and said softly, You guys go, I will return to Naval after I go to Windmill Village. Headquarters. Hearing Gion's answer, everyone flashed a look of regret. Lin Chen looked at Gion and said nothing, and he had roughly guessed something in his heart. Kuina and Zoro on the other side also had longing looks on their faces. Seeing this, Lin Chen said, Mr. Koshiro, how about bringing these 2 children with you? After learning swordsmanship in Shimotsuki village for so many years, they must not have the skills yet. Let's go out and see the world. A trace of hesitation flashed across Koshiro's face, but looking at Kuina and Zoro's expectant eyes, he finally sighed. Okay, please take good care of them. Great. When Koshiro agreed, Kuina and Zoro both cheered. Seeing the happy faces of Kuina and Zoro, Kakuzu smiled on everyone's lips. Sugar and Luo soon became familiar with Zoro Kuina. Lin Chen felt extremely relaxed when he saw the 4 children playing. After the meal, everyone dispersed one by one. Lin Chen also walked with Gion on the edge of the island. In the end, the 2 of them chose an open place. Facing the gentle sea breeze, a snow-white silver plate hangs in the sky. The silver moonlight spread on Gion's cheek, making him look like an elf and dreamlike. Sister Gion, you don't have to hide many things in your heart. After hearing Lin Chen's words, Gion paused, then smiled and said, how can there be? Before he finished speaking, Gion was gently held in Lin Chen's arms. A gust of breeze blew Gion's hair away like a naughty child, which also made her mood a little confused. If you don't know what to do about Marine 6 Admiral, you can talk to me. I'm willing to be a listener, Gion. Quote. Gion was silent for a moment, but when she looked up at Lin Chen, who now looked much more mature, she suddenly realized that Lin Chen was no longer the little kid who only followed her. Lin Chen's appearance also made her feel at ease, so she told Lin Chen everything about herself. After listening to Gion's confession, Lin Chen couldn't help but smile knowingly, and rubbed Gion's head involuntarily. I thought it was something. You don't need to worry about this. Didn't I attack Mariejois a few days ago? It seems that the world government didn't tell you the truth. Fact. Speaking of which, Gion was also very worried when she heard that Lin Chen was attacking Mariejois. However, she was on a mission in New World at the time. She lost news after the live broadcast was interrupted. Fortunately, she later learned from Garp that Lin Chen should be full body. And Retreat breathed a sigh of relief. But judging from Lin Chen's words, it seems that there are more secrets in the Mariejois incident that have not been revealed. You just said so much. The main reason is that you don't want to be summoned by the celestial dragons after serving as admiral. Don't worry about this. I have already killed 80% of the celestial dragons. What? After hearing Lin Chen's words, Gion's little mouth grew slightly, with a look of shock on his face. Holding Gion's shoulders tightly, Lin Chen continued. Back in Mariejois, I killed 3 of the Knights of God. I destroyed 80% of the Mariejois mainland, and the celestial dragons suffered many casualties. Otherwise, according to the nature of the world government, how could they allow Marine to grow in strength? It's not that they want to, but that they no longer have the strength to stop it. But the world government will definitely not be captured like this. You have to be wary of whether there is a secret agent of the world government in the Marines. Gion was not a dull person, he immediately woke up after being touched by Lin Chen. After staying in the Marine for so many years, she has already discovered that the current Marine factions are very serious, especially when the world is currently recruiting soldiers. There is no guarantee that some of them will be mixed into the Marine. Thinking of this, Gion's expression became solemn, and he turned to ask Lin Chen seriously, then what is your next plan? Looking at Gion's appearance, Lin Chen chuckled and pointed at his mouth. Seeing this, Gion twisted Lin Chen's waist, but looking at Lin Chen's appearance of a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water, he was afraid that he would not give up, so he could only give Lin Chen a sweet kiss. When the two separated, Gion's cheeks flushed, and he turned to look at Lin Chen angrily. This guy's hands just now were not honest at all. Although she wanted to stop him, she was so weak from Lin Chen's kiss that she could only let him do it. When Lin Chen looked at Gion and was about to teach him a lesson, he suddenly became serious and immediately started talking about business. In my opinion, although the strength of the world government has been severely damaged by me, what is hidden behind it cannot be underestimated. Now don't mention what I tell you to anyone, just know it yourself. Clearing his throat, Lin Chen continued, there is still a powerful person in the deepest part of Mariejois. He is the only one who can rival me now, but I will definitely be stronger than him in the future, there is no doubt about it. Gion was a little confused. Aren't the strongest people in the world government the Knights of God and the 5 Elders? Seeing Gion's confused look, Lin Chen didn't explain too much, and just said, don't worry, that guy usually won't come out. On the surface, it will be the 5 Elders who will come out to take care of the abbot's affairs. In addition, as soon as the words changed, Lin Chen's eyes became deep. I want you to help me inside Marine. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Gion's hands clenched subconsciously. How can I help you? Looking at Gion's appearance, Lin Chen comforted him first. Don't worry, I will never let you betray Marine. Although Marine and Dawn are enemies in the camp, there has been no direct conflict so far. Most of them are in world we only fight under the leadership of the government. But now that world government is over, I don't know what Marine's attitude towards Dawn is, led by Sengoku. If it's like world government, then it's really hard for me to handle. But judging from Sengoku's massive 6 Admiral events, he and the world government may not be of the same mind. Then how can I help you? Lin Chen looked into Gion's eyes, and then said word by word, participate in the 6th Admiral promotion ceremony. Establish your own faction, or integrate your current faction. After saying this, Lin Chen turned to look at the moon in the sky. Marine is not Dawn's enemy. If Sengoku and I are determined to fight, the sacrifice will only be the soldiers at the bottom of Marine and the people at the bottom of Dawn. The game between the top leaders of both sides will only lead to the sacrifice of countless sons of poor people on the battlefield. After listening to Lin Chen's narration, Guion fell into silence. Of course, when I say this, I don't mean to give up the fight against Marine. I just hope to find another way, and I need your help. Before Lin Chen finished speaking, Guion had already thought of something. Don't worry, I will always support you. Hearing Guion's words of unconditional support, Lin Chen was obviously stunned. Why do you trust me so much? Because you are still the gentle and kind Lin Chen you were before. I originally thought you would change after so many years, but you are still the same Lin Chen you were before. You have never changed. Lin Chen was a little silent, but Guion continued. I believe that with your strength, overthrowing Marine can be as easy as overthrowing world government, but that will definitely disappoint Mr. Garp and Mr. Zephyr, right? Hearing Guion's words, Lin Chen felt relieved. He gently touched Guion's head and said softly, yes, I can kill the world government without any guilt, but facing the former POWs, I can't do anything to those Marines who truly exercise justice. They shouldn't be buried in the transition between the old and new eras, they should shine in a better new era. Guion smiled slyly. Lin Chen was still the same Lin Chen as before, which made her very happy. However, just as she was about to continue saying something, Lin Chen hugged her very tightly. Now that everything has been figured out, can you go to Elegia with us? Just relax. Guion was furious as he grabbed Lin Chen's hand that was placed on his chest. I'll go if you let go. Real. Okay, I'm giving up. Okay, I'll go with you, don't let your hands go. Look for a fight. Chapter 7 Interesting Facts about Kurama. East Blue, Windmill Village. After previously discussing with Guion, Lin Chen took everyone back to Windmill Village. In order not to attract attention, Guion took off his military uniform and put on daily clothes, and asked Bojiu to return to naval headquarters first. At the same time, Guion also asked Bojiu to take a message back. She will participate in the 6th Admiral promotion ceremony, but she will only return to Marineford when the final selection begins. The free time will be used as a holiday for her to rest, and she will also travel around to experience and search ways to break through power. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief after receiving the news. Although he was a little helpless about Guion leaving without asking for leave, Guion still participated in the ceremony. What's more, taking advantage of this selection of the 6th Admiral, the world became a lot calmer for a while, and all the pirates learned to be wise and did not dare to offend Marine at this time, otherwise who knows whether the newly appointed Marine Admiral will treat them as whetstone. At this time, Lin Chen and his party had successfully returned to Windmill Village. Compared with before, there were more people this time and it was more lively. Elder brother, uncle, dad, Perona and Ace threw themselves into Lin Chen's arms. Lin Chen hugged one on each side, enjoying the long-lost warmth. The relationship between Long and Luffy is also full of father-son tenderness. Look who this is. A person appeared behind Lin Chen and Long at the same time, making Ace and others very excited. Auntie, Sabo. Guion smoothed his long hair from his ears and looked at the happy children with a smile on his lips. Lin Chen looked at this scene and clapped his hands, greeting the children. Okay, Sugar, Luo, Kuina, Zoro, you guys go and play too. Sugar, don't forget to introduce your two friends to Ace and the others. Okay, Sugar nodded lustfully, then ran towards Perona and the others holding one by the other. Seeing more and more children groups, everyone present couldn't help laughing. Perona, Ace, Luffy, Sabo, Sugar, Luo, Kuina, Zoro. But now Perona is 16 years old and has taken the initiative to take care of the children. In her heart, she is no longer the little kid she used to be, she has become an adult now. Lin Chen. A gentle voice sounded, and Lin Chen turned around for a moment, then immediately went over to wipe away Rouge's tears. Sister, why are you crying? Silly boy, Mariejois is so dangerous, what if? Okay, I'm back. Just Mariejois, with your brother's ability, he can come back even if he tries again. You know how to talk. I won't forgive you if you dare to do such a dangerous thing next time. New. Looking at the big guys around him, Lin Chen felt extremely comfortable. Hey, boy, this world is really interesting. I haven't been active for a long time. A voice sounded from the bottom of his heart. Lin Chen grinned and turned to look at everyone. Everyone, let me introduce you to a new partner. Hearing Lin Chen's voice, Ninetales was shocked. Hey, what are you going to do? I can just go out by myself at night. What do you mean? However, Lin Chen's words had already attracted everyone's attention, and they all looked at him with interest. Lin Chen's voice also sounded in Ninetales' heart. Kurama, don't be stingy. Wouldn't it be more lively if there are more people? Besides, I believe the children will like you. Hey, you guy. Before Ninetales finished speaking, Lin Chen thought and a huge white smoke rose up. When the smoke dissipated, all the children's eyes turned into bright stars, and Crocodile's cigar fell to the ground. What a cute fox. What a handsome fox. Two distinct voices came from the girl's side and the boy's side. Perona, Sugar and other girls looked at Kurama and couldn't help but get closer. After seeing that Kurama had no intention of moving, they gently stroked Kurama's soft fur and made a glutinous sound in their mouths. So cute, so supple, I suck. On the other side, the boys such as Luffy and Ace were doing some mischief. Seeing that the girls were not rejected by Kurama, they all wanted to climb on Kurama. I want to be a fox knight. Luffy was mumbling something while crawling, and Ace on the other side was not to be outdone. Several little boys wanted to be the first to climb on Kurama. You little brats, don't go too far. Damn it. When they heard that Nine Tails could still speak, everyone was shocked and speechless. The boys were even more excited and wanted to become fox knights, but Kurama shook them off mercilessly. Sugar looked at Kurama and then at Lin Chen, whose eyes suddenly showed a glint like a little fox. Brother, I want to go up. Lin Chen looked at Sutang's appearance, suddenly smiled, and then said, this is not okay. Kurama is not my pet, he is my friend. If you want to go up, you have to tell him yourself, I can't help you. Sugar, who didn't expect to be rejected, was dumbfounded. Brother Lin Chen had never rejected her. But Sato didn't give up and looked at Kurama with wide eyes. Uncle Fox, I want to go up. Looking at Granu, Kurama suddenly swallowed involuntarily, but still refused. I don't want the brats to stand on my head. Humph. However, what Kurama didn't expect was that Granu pulled the sisters around and said something. In the end, everyone giggled and looked at Kurama at the same time, which made Kurama feel cold in his heart. Uncle Fox, please satisfy us, Uncle Fox is the best. Seeing this group of little girls taking turns bombarding him, Kurama's thoughts began to change slightly. Ahem, I'm not doing it for you, Lin Chen, watch out, you owe me a favor for today. As he spoke, Kurama waved his tail and rolled up several little girls together and brought them to his head. Wow, Uncle Fox is the best. Hearing the compliments from this group of little girls, Kurama's mouth curved slightly, but suddenly he returned to a cold expression, his eyes observing Lin Chen on the other side from time to time. Watching this scene, Lin Chen shook his head slightly, then looked at the group of little boys who still didn't give up and couldn't help but sigh. Look, this is the gap, these gangsters are still not as good as these quirky little girls. Lin Chen, this is. Gion, who was on the side, came to Lin Chen and took Lin Chen's arm. He couldn't help but show a hint of worry when he looked at the children sitting on Nine Tails' head. The problem of Gion is also what Rayleigh and others are confused about. After thinking about it, Lin Chen said, he is a friend of mine, just like the relationship between us, but for some reasons, he usually stays in my body. Don't worry, everyone. With their trust in Lin Chen, everyone's doubts disappeared. What followed was curiosity about Nine Tails. No matter what, the appearance of Nine Tails still had an impact on everyone present. It's just that everyone is still strong in their own way and doesn't show it, but even so, they are full of curiosity about Nine Tails. I became even more curious after learning that Nine Tails were no less intelligent creatures than them. But only Gion seemed to have noticed something. His face suddenly turned red with embarrassment, and he quietly moved his mouth to Lin Chen's ear and whispered. Lin Chen was startled when he heard Gion's words, and then he felt a little embarrassed and started talking in Gion's ear as well. I didn't pay attention last time. Just find a reason to send him away next time. He won't see you. Don't worry. Akio. Kurama, who was having fun with the children, suddenly sneezed, and then looked at Lin Chen doubtfully. He could feel that someone was saying bad things about him just now. It must be this kid. Chapter 8 Elegia. After Lin Chen arrived at Windmill Village, he also told everyone about Elegia. When everyone heard that there was such a country of music, they all agreed to Lin Chen's trip to Elegia. Seeing that things were going so smoothly, Lin Chen didn't stay in Windmill Village for too long. But because there were too many people heading to Elegia this time, ordinary ships would definitely not be able to accommodate them, so Lin Chen used wood style to build a large ship based on the luxury cruise ship he had imagined in his previous life. As soon as the boat came out, everyone was stunned. Different from the pirate ships he usually rides on, the ship Lin Chen built this time abandoned the flexibility and combat performance of the pirate ship and turned it into a huge water passenger boat, which is no different from the land. It's not like the others have never seen or ridden on a passenger boat, but this is the first time that a boat like the one built by Lin Chen has appeared in this world. After everything was ready, Lin Chen took everyone on the journey to Elegia. Everyone was talking and laughing along the way, and soon arrived at Elegia. As they approached the port, the rows of ships surprised everyone. They had heard of Elegia's name, but they didn't expect that so many people would come to watch the music event. Most of them are passenger boats, but there are also a few pirate ships. Lin Chen came here to enjoy it with his family and friends, and chose to ignore these pirates. Of course, this was on the premise that they kept their tail between their legs and did not offend their family and friends. However, the sharp-eyed Luffy immediately recognized Shanks' ship. Looking from a distance, he saw a red sword and skull flag fluttering in the wind. It was the ship of the Red Hair Pirates. Come on, come on. I need to see Shanks. Luffy grinned excitedly, filled with anticipation of meeting Shanks. Long on the side looked at Luffy fondly, but he was also a little confused. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, could it be that he was not as powerful as a pirate? Of course, although the current Shanks are emerging, they are still far behind the pirate emperors of New World, and they have not yet reached the level of the 4 emperors of later generations. It's understandable that Long would express such emotion. After all, he didn't know what kind of great pirate Shanks would become in the future. Looking at the grand occasion in the distance, Lin Chen stretched, then subconsciously hugged Guion with his arms, and said lazily, Elegia has also arrived, and the money is ready. They are all at Lao Sha's place. I want to let's play whatever we want. The holidays have begun. Crocodile glanced at Lin Chen suspiciously. When did the money come to me again? Although he knew that he had been tricked by Lin Chen again, Crocodile felt extremely satisfied when he saw the expectant looks of Sandang and others looking at him. He immediately waved his hand and took out a lot of berry and gold. Take it, take it. If you don't have enough sugar, come and ask me for it. Hearing Crocodile's words, the children were extremely happy. Little Sugar even kissed Crocodile on the face, which made Crocodile happily stand there alone and giggle. Arriving at the port, everyone turned into a crowd and poured into Elegia. Luffy, Ace and the other little boys happily ran into the crowd. Long hung at the end of the line and scanned the various busty and long-legged people around him while always keeping an eye on Luffy and the others. The little girls like Sugar, Kuina and others were attracted by the strange musical notes around them. Monet nodded to Lin Chen and followed the group of children with Rouge. Looking at Lin Chen and Guion, Old Man Rayleigh and Crocodile smiled at each other, each holding Enel in their arms. Young people like Rocinante also disappeared into the crowd. From time to time, you can still hear the words coming from Rayleigh's mouth. Elbow. Let you young people see the world. He he he. After hearing Rayleigh's words, Enel and Rocinante showed a look of embarrassment on their faces, but they were locked tightly by Rayleigh and Crocodile and could only be forcibly led away from Lin Chen and Guion. Seeing everyone around them leaving one after another, Lin Chen and Guion held each other's hands and flowed into Elegia as an ordinary couple. During this period, Lin Chen was also a little disappointed. He thought that there were some unsightly people looking for trouble. After all, there were many beauties in the crowd, but there were no yellow-haired ones who were just looking for trouble. Lin Chen still thought of pretending to be a slap in the face. Elegia Center Music Hall. Shanks, Luffy, are they really back? Can they catch up on my show? Shanks touched Yuta's head, his face softened, and said, they will definitely come back. They will catch up with Yuta's show. Yuta couldn't help but laugh after hearing Shanks' words. After all, the music event will start tomorrow. Her musical talent happened to be noticed by the king of Elegia, which is why she was able to participate in this show. Yuta also prepared her own music and waited for everyone to sit down before performing. Okay, be sure to tell me when they arrive. I'll go get ready. Yuta said as he broke free from Shanks' big hand, waved to Shanks with a smile, and then disappeared into the crowd like a rabbit. Looking at Yuta's playful look, Shanks smiled helplessly. In his opinion, the program prepared by Yuta was good enough. He wanted to take Yuta for a walk on this day, but he didn't expect this little guy to be interested in this program. So serious. Yuta, who was pouring into the crowd, soon arrived outside the music concert hall. Looking at the lively scene outside, Yuta was also a little happy. He was walking aimlessly on the street while thinking about tomorrow's program in his mind. Soon Yuta felt a little tired and came to a park seat nearby. A few pieces of waste paper on the park seats quickly attracted her attention, and her hand involuntarily picked up these old gray-yellow papers. This is. Looking at the notes on the paper, a piece of music could not help but appear in Yuta's mind. This is a music score that has never been seen before. As she played in her heart, Yuta became happier and happier. With the fruit of singing, she easily understood the music draft and knew how shocking it was. If I use this song, I will definitely win the championship. It will definitely surprise Shanks and Luffy. As he murmured, Yuta's eyes became brighter and brighter, and after looking around, Yuta quickly left the place with these music manuscripts. She wanted to go back to get more familiar with the new song. At the same time, she was not going to tell Shanks that she had changed the song temporarily and was preparing to give everyone a big surprise tomorrow. Chapter 9 Mihawk. The Swordsman's Attack. Hey, the direction to the Big Eater competition is obviously here. Zoro pointed in one direction while tugging on Luffy's arm, with a look of confidence on his face. What the hell? Luffy picked his nose, his big eyes filled with confusion. Ace and Sabo beside him also had suspicious expressions on their faces. Looking at Luffy's appearance, Zoro slightly doubted himself, but then he said in a louder voice. I said, the Big Eater competition is over there. Really? The 3 aces looked in the direction Zoro was pointing, and the 4 characters, swordsman competition, were hanging on the side of the passage. While several people were hesitating, a small group of girls in the distance had also discovered them. Hey, what are you doing? Kuina trotted up to Zoro, bumped Zoro with her shoulder, and smiled maliciously. Hee. I saw you guys gathering together from afar, so you can't be trying to do something bad. Rouge, the oldest, also came to Luffy with Sudang and others, looking at them curiously. Seeing Kuina so close to him, Zoro's face turned slightly red and he felt a little embarrassed. Ace first ran to Rouge and then said, There is a big eating competition ahead, and we are preparing to participate. Rouge touched Ace's head, a gentle smile appeared on his face, and then said. Big eater competition. Let's go together. Ace must want to participate too. After making up their minds, everyone headed in the direction Zoro pointed. Zoro and the others who were running at the front suddenly bumped into someone. It hurts. Zoro covered his forehead with his hand. Seeing this, Kuina quickly ran to Zoro and saw that there was already a red patch on her forehead. Kuina raised her head angrily when she saw Zoro's appearance. When she wanted to speak, her voice seemed to be strangled and she couldn't speak. The man in front of him was wearing a black trench coat, a western top hat on his head, and a long black knife behind his back that was meant to devour others, which was intimidating. Its sharp yellow eyes like an eagle made Kuina speechless at that moment, and the surrounding air was suddenly filled with vigor. Long and Monet, who were secretly protecting a few people, stared at each other, causing an uproar in their hearts. Hawkeye, why is this guy Mihawk here? Mihawk relaxed after seeing that the person who bumped into him was just a child. He thought that another blind guy would attack him for the title of the world's greatest swordsman. After Mihawk relaxed, the surrounding air returned to its original state, and Kuina suddenly collapsed on the ground, breathing heavily, with unstoppable fear still in her eyes. Kuina, are you okay? Zoro saw Kuina's appearance and couldn't care less about himself. He shook Kuina in a panic and became nervous. Seeing that Kuina had no reaction, Zoro also knew that it was the guy in front of him who made Kuina like this, and angrily said to Mihawk. What did you do to Kuina? Zoro. Kuina grabbed Zoro's arm and slowly stood up. I'm fine, Zoro. Why don't you apologize to this gentleman quickly? It's obvious that you hit him first. Kuina. Zoro was a little confused. Kuina in front of him lowered her head. Although she was trying her best to hide herself, her body was still trembling slightly. Please give way. Rouge squeezed through the crowd and quickly ran to the side of Zoro and the two. This move also made Monet feel shocked, and he immediately followed and stood next to Rouge. Gently holding Kuina and Zoro in his arms to comfort them, Rouge showed an apologetic expression to Hawkeye again and nodded slightly. This gentleman is really sorry. The children were a little naughty and accidentally bumped into you. I'm really sorry. Mihawk glanced at Rouge, and then his eyes fell on Monet. Snow Fruit ability user, member of Dawn Cadre, Ice Girl Monet. If Monet appears on this island, there is a high probability that Dawn will also appear here. Especially under the eagle-eyed Hockey's perception, there is a top powerhouse quietly observing here. Many things sounded in his mind, and Mihawk quickly returned to his original state, then nodded slightly to Rouge, glanced at Kuina and said the same. I'm also sorry for this kid. I thought he was an enemy, but I didn't expect to scare this kid. I'm sorry. Just as Hawkeye was apologizing to Rouge and the others, some of the many swordsmen behind him stared at a few of them with unkind eyes, and at the same time, someone else started to take action. Boss. That's Mihawk. As long as we kill him, we can win the title of the world's greatest swordsman. That's right. How can that guy become the world's greatest swordsman? He didn't even get our consent. After practicing in the Grand Line for so long, our swordsmanship is not weak. Otherwise, we wouldn't participate in the swordsman competition here. Got it. ... Are you sure you are a member of Daybreak? That's right. Interesting. Keep watching them. Report to me as soon as you have any news. Yes. ... Captain, are we really going to provoke Daybreak? What nonsense. Haven't you noticed that there are only these little brats and those girls these days? If there is only one Ice Lady Monet, are you afraid that we won't be able to defeat them? You have to know that they have spent a lot of money these days. Only this amount is needed. We can live happily for the rest of our lives. All right. The three forces were all staring at everyone, but at this moment, the swordsman who had been impatient before drew his long sword and quickly attacked Eagle Eye. While Hawkeye was talking to the woman and child in front of him, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to kill the world's greatest swordsman. Looking at the nearby Hawkeye, these people have already imagined a happy life of becoming the world's greatest swordsman in the future, and the faint light emerging from the long sword shows good attack power. In their opinion, Hawkeye would have been seriously injured and died immediately if he had not been cut into pieces by these swords. As for the women, girls and children around them, they didn't care at all. They were even somewhat grateful to these guys. If these guys hadn't attracted Hawkeye Mihawk's attention, they wouldn't have found this golden opportunity, the opportunity to kill Hawkeye Mihawk and become the world's greatest swordsman. Hawkeye Mihawk, your death has come. The voices of several people rang out, and the long sword also released impressive slashes towards several people. The vicious attacks did not leave any chance of survival for everyone. The pirates who were planning to attack Monet and the others saw this and immediately called on everyone to rush forward, with the target being Rouge and the others. In an instant, Mihawk glanced at the people in front of him, and then immediately held his hand on the handle of the knife, preparing to block the blow. The surrounding air also condensed slightly, and an awe-inspiring chill filled everyone's hearts. The dragon's figure disappeared at some point, and a few wisps of breeze blew across the collars of several attackers. Rouge, Perona and others felt a slight tingling sensation on their bodies. This was a signal from their bodies, and they also saw the moves of the swordsman in front of them. The tingling sensation was caused by these slashes. If you don't avoid the coming signal, you will die. But if someone carefully observes these seemingly powerless women, girls and children, they will find that their necklaces or bracelets are faintly glowing, and a tadpole-like magic spell on them seems to come alive. Moving. On the other side, Lin Chen looked lazily in one direction, then suddenly became cold, and his hands tightened on Guion, and the two of them disappeared in an instant. Rayleigh, Enel, Crocodile, Fujitora, etc. all sensed something, and their figures disappeared in an instant. Chapter 10 The familiar Lin Chen. Advertise here. Jung. The sound of the sword being unsheathed rang in everyone's ears, and Mihawk instantly wiped out all attacks with one strike. However, the pirates' offensive has already reached everyone's side. The pirates who have the courage to target Dawn are naturally not weak people. There is no pirate with a bounty of less than 300 million. Suffer death. The expression on the pirate's face became extremely ferocious at this moment, and he stared at the female family members fiercely, as if he wanted to eat them. Even if Monet had taken action at this moment, the cold air that had condensed in a short period of time only hindered their steps. Seeing that the pirates were about to succeed, Long's tall body appeared in front of everyone, and his eyes were staring coldly at the pirates. The murderous look in his eyes made the surrounding crowd feel a little scared. The appearance of the dragon also hindered this group of pirates, preventing them from moving forward. You guy, could it be? Before the pirate could finish his words, a slightly frivolous voice appeared in their ears. Why is it so lively? A bunch of scum. Lin Chen appeared next to several people holding Guion's hand, and the red light in his eyes flickered slightly. For him now, there is no need to wear a mask in a place like this. Under his powerful illusion, everyone who sees him cannot see his true appearance. At the same time, in order not to reveal Guion's identity, he also used a small illusion trick on Guion, which was basically the same as Lin Chen's. Even afterward, they would only have an impression in their minds, but they could not remember the faces of Lin Chen and Guion. Madara. Why is he here? Isn't he going to overthrow the world government? There is no news about him after that war. Why does he appear on this island? Is he here for the music festival? Are you crazy? How could a person like him come here for such a thing? Is this also the place they want to occupy? Listening to the whispers around him, Lin Chen frowned slightly, and the people around him were so frightened that they immediately stopped talking. Looking at the reactions of the people around him, Lin Chen sighed helplessly. He just came to relax with his family, and others always thought of him too complicatedly. Lifting his lazy eyelids and looking at the pirates who were too frightened to move, Lin Chen walked step by step to his leader. He casually hit his shoulder like a gathering of old friends, but the other person was so frightened that his body tensed up and he didn't dare to make any move. Don't be so nervous. There are a lot of people today. I don't want to see blood. Get as far away from me as you can, do you understand? Looking into Lin Chen's eyes, the pirate nodded blankly, and then led a group of pirates away from this place of right and wrong. At the same time, Lin Chen's clone has quietly followed this group of pirates. In addition to getting rid of this group of people, he also wants to pry out the murderer behind them from their mouths. He doesn't really believe that there is no one behind these pirates. Others, unless they really want their money or their lives. After doing all this, Lin Chen first confirmed the situation with Perona and others before turning his attention to Mihawk, who had been watching him. Mihawk on the side has been looking at Lin Chen after dealing with the swordsman who wanted to kill him. After all, he has always been curious about this legendary figure. Lin Chen walked up to Mihawk, stretched out his right hand, and said with some respect, Dawn, Madara, thank you for saving my family. Mihawk was stunned when he saw Lin Chen's outstretched right hand. He didn't expect Lin Chen to face him with this attitude. But he quickly reacted, stretched out his right hand a little awkwardly and held it with Lin Chen. At the same time, he thought about it in his mind before saying, a piece of cake. Feeling the touch on his hand, Mihawk felt slightly uncomfortable. Lin Chen continued to hold Mihawk's hand with a smile on his face. This guy. Mihawk was a little confused about what Lin Chen meant, and he resisted and wanted to pull out his hand, but Lin Chen was one step faster than him and had already pulled out his hand in advance. Looking at his empty hands, Mihawk was stunned for a moment, but then the smiling face appeared in front of him. Mihawk, you are here not for the swordsman competition, right? As he said this, Lin Chen pointed to the large billboards around him for the swordsman competition. Mihawk glanced at Lin Chen silently, turned around and left without saying anything. Hey, don't leave in a hurry. We have to participate in the music competition together later. That Shanks guy has been waiting for us for a long time. Let's go together. Hearing Shanks' name, Mihawk stopped and turned around to continue staring at Lin Chen. Lin Chen said something to Guion beside him. Guion looked at Zoro beside him, and finally nodded gently. After doing all this, Lin Chen walked towards Mihawk, and Mihawk kept staring at Lin Chen, behind. The world's greatest female swordsman, Guion. Hearing Mihawk's words, everyone present was a little surprised. You must know that Lin Chen and Guion's faces were obscured by illusions, but Hokage could still recognize them. I don't understand why I can't see your face clearly, but the swordsman's will in you is so obvious. You are the only woman I know with this level of swordsmanship. While Mahawk was still staring at Guion, Lin Chen suddenly slapped him on the shoulder. When Mahawk was so frightened by Lin Chen's move, as a swordsman, he didn't even know when someone came to him. Hey, it's not good to stare at people all the time. Come with me to the central concert hall. Shanks is waiting for us there. Looking at the familiar guy next to him, Mahawk was slightly speechless, but seeing Lin Chen exuding kindness, Mahawk couldn't refuse directly, so he could only be pushed away by Lin Chen, leaving everyone behind. Looking at each other. Looking at Lin Chen in the distance, Guion shook his head slightly helplessly, and then called everyone to follow him. Chapter 11 Reunion after a long absence. Along the way, Mahawk always had a cold look, but this did not affect Lin Chen's ability to express himself in front of Hokage. Hokage also looked helplessly at the chattering guy in front of him, feeling a little helpless. It really surprised him that a strong man of this level showed such an attitude. Not long after, everyone arrived at the music hall in the center. And Shanks was already waiting at the door to greet everyone. Mahawk still had a cold expression after seeing Shanks. But Lin Chen had already hugged him. Shanks. Hey, don't use so much force. I'm almost going to be strangled to death by you. After giving Shanks a big bear hug, Lin Chen hit Shanks' chest. There is no need to say anything between good brothers. Mahawk on the other side is a little strange. Although he knew that the leader of Daybreak had a close relationship with Shanks. But he didn't expect that the two had a sincere relationship. He originally thought that Daybreak and Red Hair Pirates were just collaborating. Lin Chen and Shanks exchanged pleasantries. Then Shanks pointed at Lin Chen with his eyes. Lin Chen also understood Shanks' meaning at a glance. He was asking whether he had told Mahawk his identity. So Lin Chen leaned over Shanks' ear and said, "It's up to you to talk about this kind of thing. If you are the middleman, he can accept it more easily." Shanks was stunned when he heard Lin Chen's words, then patted Lin Chen's shoulder and walked towards Mahawk. "Shanks. You're still so cold." Mahawk. HMPH. "For the sake of your daughter, I won't challenge you to a duel today." Shanks scratched his head. He didn't expect Mahawk to say this, and then he hugged Mahawk's neck. Whispered in Mahawk's ear, "That guy is Lin Chen." Mahawk was a little confused after hearing Shanks' words. Lin Chen. Who is Lin Chen? Apart from the name making him somewhat familiar, he couldn't remember anything about Lin Chen. Looking at Mahawk's sharp eyes with a hint of confusion. Shanks sighed in his heart and continued. Marine. Lin Chen. Flying Thunder God. Hearing these familiar words, Mahawk's eyes suddenly widened. This name has been in his heart for so many years. As the swordsman who defeated Mahawk before he became famous, Mahawk has always regarded Lin Chen as his target to defeat. And Lin Chen didn't have any thoughts because of their identities. He gets along well with himself and Shanks. But such an informal, upright and generous Marine actually fell into Kaido's hands. This is absolutely unacceptable to him. They obviously made an appointment to have a duel the next time they meet. But Lin Chen actually broke the appointment. After learning the news of Lin Chen's death, Mahawk said nothing. He just silently pulled out the black knife and moved firmly towards the chassis of Beast's pirates. He couldn't accept that the man who defeated him in swordsmanship died like this. Although as a Marine, this is a worthy death. But Mahawk has already made Lin Chen his confidant. In Mahawk, Lin Chen is not a Marine at all, but a swordsman who has sympathy with him. The two of them should climb to the pinnacle of swordsmanship together. But Lin Chen was actually taken away by him. When Shanks saw Mahawk like this, he felt like he was holding back his breath. Lin Chen's death made him unable to breathe, and at the same time he was also a little confused. After all, it was a pirate who killed Lin Chen. And he is also a pirate. Judging from the identity, Marine kills pirates, and pirates kill Marine. This is an eternal law. Shanks was also a little confused at that moment. But my heart was filled with not only confusion but also grief for the loss of my best friend. Therefore, he did not hesitate to lead his friends and Mahawk into the territory of Beast's pirates. Shanks still remembers that it was a gray day. It is raining heavily between heaven and earth. The dark clouds are so heavy that it's hard to breathe. It's been raining ever since they teamed up to attack the Beast's pirates. Until the two of them helped each other and left. The sky just started to clear up one by one. Both of them suffered a lot of injuries. But they also meet Kaido of the Beasts. I also saw the injuries Lin Chen had left on Kaido. After the two of them joined forces to continuously attack the injuries left by Lin Chen, they also succeeded in severely injuring Kaido. Although he failed to help Lin Chen take revenge. But the two of them also managed to escape unscathed. You must know that the two of them had rested for a long time after the fight. And now, when this face gradually overlaps with the face that I can't remember clearly in my memory. Mahawk opened his mouth but no words came out. Who? Unclear syllables came out of Mahawk's mouth, but eventually disappeared. Lin Chen looked at this scene and smiled softly. After dispelling the illusion, I looked at Mahawk. A long time. Mahawk continued. Well, the fact that you didn't die really surprised me. It seems like I can challenge you to a duel again. Although Mihawk's tone is still cold. But everyone around could see that the corners of Mihawk's mouth had turned up. But he himself has no idea. Lin Chen also smiled when he saw Mihawk's appearance. He patted Mihawk on the shoulder and showed a big smile. If you are happy, don't say it so coldly. You still look like that. Looking at Lin Chen's smile, Mihawk was in a daze for a moment. Yes, they are still the same, they have never changed. Shanks, my show is about to start. Is Luffy here? At this time, Yuta, who had half red hair and half white hair, revealed a small head from the door of the concert hall. Looking straight at Shanks outside the door. Hear Yuta's voice. Everyone turned to look at Yuta and said, "Little Yuta, here we come." Among them, Luffy even pulled his little friend and ran over excitedly. Yuta, here we come. Gion looked at the yearning look in Kuina's eyes. He also patted Kuina's shoulder gently and said softly, "Kuina can go too. Yuta's long song is very nice." Kuina looked up at Gion with a twinkle in her eye. Satang on the side also came over, took Kuina's hand and rushed towards Yuta. "Come over and meet Yuta. She will definitely like you. Because you are very good at swordsmanship." Kuina was dragged by Granu and ran over staggeringly. My heart felt extremely relaxed for a moment. What is chasing the world's greatest swordsman? What is training hard? Now she is just a teenage girl in her prime. After being invited by so many partners. She also let go of the heavy burdens she had been carrying. Today I just want to play carelessly with my friends. Chapter 12 Black Note. Soon everyone followed Yuta and poured into the music hall with the bustling crowd. Looking around, you can see a piece of gilded rubble forming a patchwork of crystal lamps in the air, which looks extremely luxurious. The audience seats are built around the performance stage in the middle, and the seats for everyone will naturally not be on the outermost level. Although the outermost layer is the tallest and the inner layer is the shortest, the innermost layer is closer to the performance stage and can naturally achieve the best effect for listening to music. At this time, most people began to sit down in their seats. There were only a few people in the first few rows, but they were all people of distinguished status. Shanks took everyone and sat down directly in the first row. Although Lin Chen's team was large, they could all sit down one by one. On the contrary, the entire first row was filled with their people. Lin Chen could still see Lao Sha opposite him looking at him with his arms folded, as if he was asking Lin Chen what he was looking at. Soon the entire concert hall turned off the lights and turned all the lights on the performance stage. A middle-aged man wearing a crown appeared above. It was the king of Elegia. Ahem. First of all, thank you for participating in the music event held by Elegia. You must be full of artistic people. I won't say much. Let's enjoy this music celebration for all artists. Although the man on the stage tried his best to show his composure, the twitching corners of his eyes and the large drops of sweat on his forehead when he saw the people in the first row could still show his nervousness. The good friends Shanks said are these guys. Alas, if it weren't for Yuta's extraordinary singing talent, I would have refused to give him a seat. I didn't expect it to be these guys. Shanks didn't know that he was being talked about in people's minds. At this time, everyone was sitting upright and waiting for Yuta to come on. The man on the stage returned to the backstage after finishing his opening remarks, and the music conference officially began. Lin Chen found it quite interesting to listen to the various people, demi-humans, and non-human beings on the stage performing their own singing voices. I squeezed Gion's little hand next to me and found that Gion was listening to various songs seriously, as if immersed in the beauty brought by these songs. Looking around, everyone was like this except Lao Sha, Luffy and a few rough guys like myself. Soon, Yuta came on the stage, which made a few people who had been sleepy become interested. Looking around, there seemed to be no music cards like those from previous concerts. Lin Chen immediately used wood style to create a variety of support cards saying, "Yuta is my favorite. Yuta is the cutest," and so on. As for how to make the words on the light sign appear, there is no better flash effect than lightning style. Shanks, who was sitting on the left side of Lin Chen, glanced at the thing Lin Chen had been tinkering with for a long time, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Sugu Yi, what is this? Give me one." Before he finished speaking, Shanks had already stretched out his wolf claws towards these light signs. Lin Chen was not stingy either. With a slight shake of his hand, everyone's hands showed signs of support for Yuta. At dawn, the whole family plus the Red Hair Pirates group, at first glance, dozens of swaying light signs look quite intimidating. The people behind me have never seen this situation before, but they are very happy. Then I don't know who took the lead in shouting, "Yuta is the cutest." Everyone in the front row echoed, and eventually everyone in the concert hall was ignited by the atmosphere. Yuta, what a cute girl. Kawaii. I like Yuta the most. After all, they have never celebrated in this way, and the little girl on the stage is really cute, and it's okay to shout a few words. Yuta, who was preparing to perform on stage, had never experienced such a situation before, and her little face turned red. Especially looking at Luffy in the audience who was shouting, "Yuta is so cute. And, I like Yuta the most." Heartlessly. Yuta felt angry and annoyed and a little shy at the same time. Yuta's appearance on the stage was noticed by everyone in the first row, and a smile appeared on their lips. But everyone knew what was going on and quickly calmed down, waiting for Yuta to perform for everyone. Watching the movement gradually subside, Yuta took a deep breath and then started her performance. The beautiful singing voice performed the beautiful music to the fullest, and everyone was immersed in this moment. Even Lin Chen relaxed and immersed himself in Yuta's music. Is this the power of singing fruits? Thinking secretly in his heart, Lin Chen gradually adapted to the soothing and calming music brought by Yuta. But in a corner of the background, there were items that Yuta was carrying. Originally, the piece Yuta prepared was the piece she was playing now. She still didn't practice the piece she picked up well, so she put it in the background. But at this moment, black notes began to appear on the piece of music, and with that piece of music as the center, the black notes began to spread to the entire backstage. And he squirmed towards the performance stage of the music hall as if he was attracted by something. The black notes almost blend into the environment, and the notes themselves don't reveal any strange atmosphere. Everyone was immersed in the beautiful songs brought by Yuta, so no one noticed these strange notes. In this way, Yuta on the stage is still singing affectionately with his eyes closed, but if someone observes carefully at this time, those strange notes surround the entire performance stage. And Yuta's singing is coming to an end. Everyone in the music hall except those in the first row has fallen into a sweet dream. Including those in the first row, such as Zoro Kuina Perona, etc., also fell into a deep sleep. Only a few like Lin Chen continued to listen to the songs while falling asleep. But all was interrupted by a scream. Ah! Shanks! Yuta's exclamation immediately woke up Lin Chen and others. When they looked up, all the black notes floating in the air were dense. Shanks! Lin Chen! It hurts me so much. Yuta's face was in pain, and his eyes turned upward because he couldn't bear the pain. Countless black notes were crazily crowding into Yuta's head. At this time, Yuta could not bear the notes that were crazily squeezed into her head. Veins bulged on her forehead, and she began to spit out saliva unconsciously. However, she still called out to Shanks and Lin Chen with instinct. Name. Yuta. In unison, Shanks' eyes were splitting when he saw this scene, and he burst out with a strong momentum. He pulled out his long knife and was about to rush to the stage. I am going to kill all these strange black notes. Lin Chen was no exception at this time, but when his eyes switched to Rinnegan, a phenomenon in front of him forced him to stop the rampaging Shanks. Shanks, stop. Destroy those notes and Yuta will die. Chapter 13 Totemujika, the Demon King of Song. Advertise here. What? Upon hearing Lin Chen's words, Shanks immediately stopped moving and looked at Yuta with doubts in his eyes. Shanks, help me. In front of him, Yuta was still screaming heartbreakingly, which made Shanks very anxious. There were beads of sweat on his forehead and his eyes were bloodshot. In Lin Chen's field of vision, each black note from Rinnegan began to merge into Yuta's body. These notes poured into Yuta's body like they had found their own container. And because Yuta ate the song fruit, Yuta's body began to accept these notes, and the process of notes entering Yuta's body continued. If Shanks cuts off the notes now, although it can prevent outside notes from continuing to enter, Yuta's body will no one knows what kind of changes will happen. What's more, from Lin Chen's perspective, Yuta was in pain only because his body couldn't bear the influx of so many notes at the same time, so he felt pain. When Shanks was at a loss what to do, a layer of black skeleton began to attach to Lin Chen's body. At the same time, a pair of big hands exuding black flames stretched out from the skeleton and grabbed the black notes in the air. This is. The moment Susanoo's big hand touched the black note, Lin Chen felt a very ominous and cursed aura. At the same time, a cold voice began to appear next to Lin Chen's ears. Jihieji. The song fruit is finally born. Lin Chen's eyes were filled with surprise. He glanced at Shanks and found that he still looked worried and didn't seem to hear the words. HMPH. Pretending to be a ghost. Lin Chen snorted coldly. Susanoo's big hand grabbed the black note tightly to prevent them from entering Yuta's body. At the same time, a black flame began to burn rapidly on the note. Soon, the cold sound appeared in Lin Chen's ear again. The voice, but this time seemed to be much more panicked. What? Who's stopping me? It's so hot. Hearing this sound, Lin Chen's eyes were fixed on the notes in the air. And the moment the notes stopped entering Yuta, Yuta didn't scream, and instead her eyes were white and suspended in the air. Lin Chen. What happened? Who are you talking to? What's wrong with Yuta now? Lin Chen raised his head and glanced at Yuta hanging in the air, and then said to Shanks. There's a guy hidden in the notes. He was the one who manipulated the notes into Yuta's body. Shanks was startled when he heard Lin Chen's words, and his fist holding the sword tightened a little more. At this time, everyone who was sleeping at first woke up one after another when they heard the noise. When they discovered the scene in front of them, they immediately cheered up. Lin Chen briefly told what happened, and then the voice rang in his ears again. But at this time, the mysterious figure seemed to have discovered something, and his words began to be full of confidence. Jihieji. I see, I don't know who you are. But if you continue to stop me, that little girl will die. Listening to the voice in his ears, Lin Chen glanced at Yuta again, and now he found something wrong with Yuta. At this time, Yuta's eyes turned white from the beginning and became lifeless, almost as if he was about to die at this moment. Seeing the evil scene in front of him, the black flames on Lin Chen's hands became a little heavier, but he didn't expect that Yuta on the other side seemed to become weaker. In desperation, he could only give up the burning of the black flames and just continued to stop the black flames. The note entered Yuta's body. At this time, the mysterious voice spoke again. It's useless. This time I finally encountered the song fruit and it was born again. I couldn't give up. The moment my notes entered this little girl's body, our souls were bound together. Although I only entered half of it. But that little girl can't bear even that half. Lin Chen frowned when he heard the mysterious voice. Who are you? The voice was silent for a while, seeming to be remembering, and then said after a while. I don't remember who I am, but I know that I was born for the song fruit. It can be said that I am a vassal of the song fruit. If the song fruit is not born, I can only continue to sleep. My existence can make song. The person with the fruit ability can exert his greatest strength. But at the same time, I will also be bound to the soul of the person with the singing fruit ability. It's a win-win situation. Huh, it's just a cursed soul. Whatever you say. But if you don't let me enter that little girl's body now, that little girl will die. He seems to be very important to you, right? But don't worry, I won't do anything to her. Once the person with the song fruit ability dies, I will fall asleep again. I don't want to finally come out once and fall into sleep again. After hearing this, Lin Chen found that Yuta had indeed become very weak as he said, and everyone on the other side did not know what was going on at this time. They could only see that Lin Chen seemed to be talking to someone they could not see or hear. The missing person speaks, and the others know nothing. But at this moment they can only place their hopes on Lin Chen. Seeing that Yuta was in danger, Lin Chen had no choice but to give up. But at the same time, he also knew that the other party would not be so easy to talk to, and he began to be wary. Although you cannot believe everything the other party says, the connection between the black notes and the singing fruit should be true. From this point of view, the other party will indeed not hurt Yuta. What you need to be careful about is that after the other party enters Yuta is still the same as before. Yuta. Thinking of this, the power in Lin Chen's hand began to weaken, and the black note slowly entered Yuta's body. Seeing this scene, Shanks couldn't accept it for a while, but Lin Chen had already withdrawn Susanoo and fell to the ground. And that voice seemed to know the importance of Yuta, and did not dare to suddenly enter Yuta's body, and could only enter bit by bit. In the end, what happened? Listening to Shanks' questioning in front of him, Lin Chen roughly recounted everything that had just happened. Song fruit. The demon king of song. After knowing what happened, Shanks kept mumbling, and at the same time his face was full of disbelief. Soon all the notes in the air were integrated into Yuta's body, and it was no longer a time to be stunned. Everyone immediately became alert and looked at Yuta with his eyes closed in front of them. While everyone was holding their breath, Yuta's eyes opened instantly in the next second, but they were not those beautiful eyes. The pupils were filled with strange black notes. A harsh mixed sound also came from Yuta's mouth. Finally out. This world. I'm here again. Ha 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 ha. As the words fell, Yuta's body suddenly erupted with several extremely powerful black lights. A terrifying huge figure began to appear. The huge concert hall burst open, and the entire center of Elegia was enveloped by this huge figure. This monster figure has a pair of huge and extended arms, and 3 skulls surround the front of its neck. It has a green felt hat on its head, its cheeks are dark, and only a scarlet gaze can be seen with a pinching light. I, Tote Mujica, will rule this world again. Perish. Bugs. Chapter 14 Yuta and Totemujica. The appearance of Totemujica made everyone at the scene nervous. At the same time, the phenomenon happening here also made the pirates, marine and others in the distance find clues. Countless people on the coast looked towards the middle of the island from a distance, but because the distance was too far, they did not know what was happening. Immediately afterwards, a strong shock wave swept over, and the waves around the island could not withstand this shock wave. It carried many ships and broke off their ropes and was pushed to the depths of the sea. A huge vortex began to form in the sky above the entire island, and the clouds were mixed with lightning and thunder. Not long after, raindrops began to fall. The rain washed the earth, washing away the enthusiasm of the day, and inexplicable uneasiness began to appear in everyone's hearts. Emergency gathering. All Marines evacuate the crowd immediately. Send people to the concert hall to investigate immediately. Report to naval headquarters immediately. Let the idle warships around immediately come over. Elegia needs support. The Marine commander stationed on Elegia is a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. He smokes a half-full cigar and has a little stubble on his chin. The cross scars on his face and the perseverance in his eyes reveal this. People's past is not simple. Yes, Colonel Al. Listening to the sound of his subordinates leaving in a hurry, Al looked solemnly at the center of the island. He took a deep puff of his cigar for a long time and pressed the cigarette butt on the reward order on the table. He put on his cloak and disappeared in the face of the heavy rain. It was extremely chaotic outside at the moment. In addition to civilians, there were many pirates on the island. At this time, I had to go out and calm the situation to prevent worse things from happening. The cigarette butt in the room began to burn the bounty notices. Under the dim light, the red-haired Shanks and Ben Beckman could be vaguely seen, and even the hawk-eyed Mahawk could be seen in the further corner. The one burned by the cigarette butt was Lin Chen's wanted poster, but at this time the flames had burned Lin Chen's head beyond recognition. It wasn't until Marine, who had just left, came to the room again to look for his boss that he didn't find him. He could only throw the cigar with only a butt on the table in a panic, and at the same time brush away the black ashes on the reward order. Huh, a bounty order without a bounty. What does it say? This person has committed a heinous crime. Live or die. Those who fulfill the conditions can join the celestial dragons. Is that so? Quote. In the center of Elegia, the concert hall has been razed to the ground. Gia 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 Gia, bugs. Go to hell. Totemujika's roar echoed through the sky, and Lin Chen's eyes gradually became cold. Gion, take care of my sister and the children. After leaving a sentence, Lin Chen's body was instantly covered with a dazzling golden coat, which seemed out of place in this gloomy environment. Whoosh. In just half a breath, Lin Chen disappeared on the spot, leaving only a shallow footprint underneath. Lin Chen suddenly appeared in front of Totemujika. Looking at the giant creature in front of him, Lin Chen showed no fear and punched Totemujika hard in the face. Totemujika also reacted very quickly. He successfully blocked the blow with his two long arms crossed in front of him, but he took a few steps back. Totemujika. What? Who are you? You can force me back. What was left for Totemujika to respond was Lin Chen's emotionless eyes. Soon, something happened that surprised Totemujika even more. I saw that Lin Chen just made a seal, and countless densely packed Lin Chens instantly appeared in the sky. Ah. This. Totemujika was shocked speechless by the scene in front of him, and at the same time, he began to feel a little panic in his heart. At this moment, thousands of Lin Chens in the sky raised their arms at the same time, and a dazzling white light in their palms seemed to be connected to the thunder in the sky, emitting a thrilling wave. Seeing this scene, Totemujika finally panicked. He didn't understand how he could meet such a monster when he came out after just sleeping. You must know that in his time, he could walk sideways in the world just by relying on his own strength. The only people who can compare with the person in front of me are only one or two people at the top of the world, and they may not be able to produce one in 1,000 years. People can always burst out of their potential when pressed, and the same is true for Totemujika. When he saw the lightning bursting out from the hands of Lin Chen who came up in the air, Totemujika directly lifted Yuta out. At this time, Yuta's eyes were closed tightly, and Totemujika was wrapped in his body. He clearly told Lin Chen that as long as you chop him down, Yuta would also be severely injured. Let's see who dies first. The two sides began to confront each other under the heavy rain. On the other side, Gion and Laosha were not idle either, and quickly protected Rouge, Ace and others. At this moment, shouts and screams could be heard outside. You know, this music event has attracted many pirates, because the people who can come to the music event are either wealthy businessmen or powerful people, so the pirates have long been planning something secretly. At this moment, the emergence of Totemujika caused chaos on the island, which provided these pirates with an excellent opportunity. Countless pirates took advantage of this chaos and began to loot, burn and kill. Although the marine on the island has begun to maintain order and arrest pirates, it is still a drop in the bucket. The surviving civilians began to want to run away from the island, but all the ships had been carried into the depths of the sea by the waves, so there was not a single ship left at this time. This scene was also seen by Gion. He glanced at Lin Chen who was still confronting Totemujika in the air. Before Gion could say anything, Rouge took his hand. Rouge. Go. Don't worry about Lin Chen. There are so many people here and nothing will happen. Lin Chen will definitely rescue Yuta. Gion nodded, and then looked at each other with everyone, naturally hoping that everyone could take care of Rouge and Lin Chen, and then immediately rushed towards the island. At this moment, she also took out the marine cloak she had brought with her, put two long knives on her waist, and ran towards the place where the pirates were making trouble with a pair of slender thighs, with a coldness in her beautiful eyes. Pirate. On the other side, Lin Chen glanced at Gion's back. Of course he had heard what Rouge and Gion said. This was also true. If Yuta can't handle her current situation, then there's nothing anyone else can do. If he just hit Totemujika, many people present could do it, but what he had to do was to completely seal Totemujika in Yuta's body. Let the dominance of the two be in Yuta's hands, and not in the hands of Totemujika. The relationship between the two people in front of them is like the relationship between Naruto and Ninetales without a seal, and what he has to do is add this layer of seal. Therefore, it is crucial to trick Totemujika into taking out Yuta's body. Therefore, when attacking Yuta, he must always be careful not to hurt Yuta, and he must find the right opportunity to briefly separate the two. And now that Totemujika is forced by himself, it is a very good opportunity to reveal Yuta. Chapter 15 Sealing Technique. At the moment Totemujika exposed Yuta's body, Lin Chen came to Yuta with lightning speed. At this moment, Yuta's voice suddenly appeared next to Lin Chen's ears. Lin Chen glanced at Yuta subconsciously, only to find that Yuta began to sing an unknown song softly. The song was ethereal and melodious, and even Lin Chen was a little dazed for a moment, but he quickly broke free of that sense of restraint. But then he realized something was wrong and turned to look around. Except for a few slightly stronger people, the others began to fall into a state of confusion. Seeing this scene, Lin Chen turned around and looked at Totemujika, and happened to see the evil smile on the corner of his mouth. As Yuta's singing got louder, many people began to pick up the weapons around them and start killing each other. Totemujika, if this is all you have, then I am really disappointed. Hearing the disdain in Lin Chen's words, Totemujika became furious. Looking around, except for a few people, everyone around them has begun to fall into a state of cannibalism. Even if the outside world cannot wake them up by any means, is it possible that he can make a comeback at this point? If there is such a method, why not use it from the beginning, instead of doing nothing when you are in trouble? As if he knew what Totemujika was thinking, Lin Chen glanced at him and said, "The reason why I didn't stop what you did is, apart from your guess that I might have given up, is there any other possibility? Everything you do seems to me to be childish, and the current situation is still within my control." Hearing this, Totemujika suddenly became speechless, and then his eyes became even more confused. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether what Lin Chen said was true or false. Lin Chen ignored Totemujika, his eyes scanned the crowd and finally locked on Rocinante. Gently holding Rocinante's figure, Rocinante's eyes were confused and he was easily taken by Lin Chen. Immediately afterwards, Lin Chen's eyes glowed red, and the reverse flow of time began to appear on Rocinante's body. After a while, Rocinante, whose eyes were still confused, regained consciousness. The remaining people were not idle either, protecting the children and the weaker ones. Among them, Lao Sha's quicksand swept the entire venue, imprisoning the rest of the crazy people. "Boss, me." When Rocinante woke up, she still didn't know what had happened, and Lin Chen whispered a few words in Rocinante's ear. Then Lin Chen faced Totemujika and Yuta with one hand, and his eyes turned into circles of purple lines. Universal pull. The bodies of Totemujika and Yuta began to fly toward Lin Chen involuntarily. Damn it! What on earth are you planning to do? Seeing Lin Chen making a series of unexplained actions in front of him, Totemujika finally began to panic. He finally confirmed in his heart what Lin Chen said, that he indeed had the ability to deal with him. Just bringing a person who was in a state of confusion back to normal already shows Lin Chen's ability. Who knows how many abilities he has yet to use. But what Lin Chen does next will tell Totemujika how simple it is to deal with him. When Totemujika and Yuta were sucked to Lin Chen's eyes turned into the eternal Mangekyo, and then the bodies of Totemujika and Yuta were unable to move at this moment. Seeing this scene, Rocinante immediately activated his ability and surrounded the two people with the ability of the silence fruit. Finally, the strange singing voice disappeared. Even though Yuta's mouth was still trembling unconsciously, no sound came out. After releasing the time lag between the two of them, Totemujika looked at Lin Chen, who was so close but did not dare to act rashly at all. But he also discovered something strange about the situation. A barrier close to the hollow surrounded himself and Yuta, and the movements of people outside who were affected by his singing began to slow down. This is the silence fruit. However, Lin Chen couldn't hear what Totemujika was saying because the sound was blocked by the silence fruit, but he could guess something from Totemujika's movements. Seeing that the people affected by the music were beginning to recover, Lin Chen also breathed a sigh of relief. If this method is feasible, then the next thing will be much easier to handle. Glancing at Totemujika and Yuta, who were still separated, Lin Chen teleported to Yuta's side, and while Totemujika was still in shock, he once again pushed Totemujika away with a time lag. Stuck. Then Lin Chen's hands began to form complex marks, and several golden chains began to burst out from Lin Chen's body and wrap around Totemujika's body. Just in case, Lin Chen ignited blue flames on his two fingers, lifted up Yuta's shirt and began to draw complex patterns on Yuta's abdomen. Finally, everything was done. I took a look at Totemujika, who was still in a time lag state. After Lin Chen released it, Totemujika was instantly pulled towards Yuta's abdomen. Nani? What happened? What are these? Damn it! Finally, with Totemujika's last scream, the whole body was directly pulled closer to Yuta's abdomen by the chain. Lin Chen let out a heavy sigh of relief when everything was over. Seeing that the matter seemed to be over, Shanks immediately rushed to Lin Chen's side. How's it going? Looking at Shanks' anxious expression, Lin Chen showed a faint smile. It's okay. Everything went well. I sealed Totemujika in Yuta's body. As long as Yuta doesn't take the initiative to release it later, that guy can't affect Yuta. After Totemujika was sealed, the affected people began to slowly return to normal. Of course, in order to prevent any sequelae, Lin Chen directly used the time reverse recovery state for everyone around him. After all, this skill can even reverse life and death, not to mention this reversal state. Just when everyone breathed a sigh of relief, Guion suddenly rushed in. Everyone, are you okay? Let's go. Marine's army is coming. There are many people from the world government. Chapter 16 Credit for promotion. Marine. Everyone was a little surprised when they heard Guion's words. They obviously didn't expect Marine to appear here at this time, so they all turned their attention to Lin Chen. Lin Chen also shook his head helplessly, sighed, and then stretched lazily. Oh, it looks like I'm leaving. Glancing at the Shanks holding Yuta, Lin Chen said, Shanks, you go first. Take good care of Yuta. Shanks looked at Lin Chen without saying anything, and then nodded heavily. The rest of the red hair pirates immediately followed Shanks and began to evacuate. The eagle eye on the other side also stared at Lin Chen and said solemnly, looking forward to our next meeting. After that, he followed Shanks away from this place of right and wrong. When everyone was almost gone, Lin Chen began to arrange the next thing. First, he used illusions to falsify the memories of other people present, creating the illusion that everyone at daybreak had not come here. Then Lin Chen said to Guion, this credit must be attributed to you. Guion's pupils narrowed slightly when he heard Lin Chen's words, and he quickly understood something. Do you want to use this credit to help me fight for the Marine 6th Admiral? Lin Chen nodded, then looked at Guion with a straight face, and said, promoting to Admiral is very important. I may take action on New World in the future, so I can do something when you are promoted to Admiral. Guion's eyes flickered, he didn't ask any more questions, he just nodded solemnly. Good. There was a tacit understanding between the two, and then Lin Chen no longer hesitated and immediately evacuated with everyone at dawn. Although they are no longer afraid of Marine and world government, they are like dogs skin plaster. Once they find their traces, they will follow them frantically. At this stage, the forces in New World and Seahai have not been eliminated, and Lin Chen does not want to have a conflict with them yet. At least we have to wait until New World is cleared before we can compete head-on with Marine. Shortly after Lin Chen led the Dawn team to evacuate, Marine's large forces rumbled onto the island. The leader is none other than Kizaru, one of the Marine admirals. The naval headquarters dispatched Kizaru here as soon as they received news of the chaos in Elegia. After all, with sparkling fruit, he was able to come here immediately to check the situation. At this time, it had only been more than half a year since the Dawn surprise attack on Mariejois, and Marine was always worried about any disturbance in the world. At the same time, in the face of riots by some pirates, they must be suppressed as soon as possible to maintain stability. Therefore, Kizaru also worked hard during this period. He did more work in the past 6 months than he did in the past 3 years combined. At this moment, Guion appeared in front of the Marine army wearing a Marine general uniform. Seeing Guion's appearance, Kizaru was stunned for a moment, and after scratching his head, he felt helpless. There's a Marine here, and I'm going to have to make this trip in vain. Hearing this, Guion patted the dust on his body and said in a deep voice, I happen to be here on vacation and met a blind thing. It's over. After saying that, Guion walked straight past Kizaru, followed by Haoju holding 2 swords. Yeah, Kizaru rubbed his chin and didn't bother to think about it for a moment. Just come here and clean up the battlefield, I'm really busy. Not long after Guion left, Elegia's assistant commander, Colonel Aru, came to Kizaru. Seeing that it was Kizaru Admiral who led Guion Air, he was obviously a little surprised, and then told Kizaru exactly what happened on the island. After understanding what happened, Kizaru came to the place where the previous battle took place, and the testimonies of the people around him were similar. The Demon King of Song was all released inexplicably, and then Guion killed them, and the Demon King of Song disappeared. Although there were many doubts about this, Kizaru thought about it for a while and stopped thinking about it. He said to the people beside him, just report it according to what they said. The Demon King of Yuta was born, and the Guion Vice Admiral took action to kill him. Yeah, that's it. Do it like this. Hearing Kizaru's rash decision, Al had some questions. Kizaru Admiral, these things look so confusing. Is there any possibility of Dawn? Kizaru turned to look at Al, and then said, in that case, the task of seizing Dawn will be left to you. Colonel. After saying that, Kizaru was about to evacuate with the large troops, but before leaving, he didn't forget to pat his shoulder to encourage Al. I'm optimistic about you. If you catch them, you can be promoted to Admiral soon. This sentence immediately made Ellen stand on the spot. Catch the Dawn yourself. How can this be? But obviously he also heard the meaning of Kizaru's words, and he was unwilling to get involved in this matter. Al could only sigh helplessly at this. Although he was a little unwilling in his heart, it was an opportunity to become celestial dragons, but if he was left to seize the Dawn alone, he would forget it. He still understands the priorities of things, and there is no need to lose his life over it. Chapter 17 Marine 6 Admiral's Promotion. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Sengoku narrowed his eyes while looking at the report submitted by his subordinates, rubbed his brows, and threw the report in the face of Garp, who was eating donuts. Eat, eat, eat. Can you please stop eating donuts during the meeting? Garp. Garp was startled by Sengoku's scolding, and quickly stuffed the last donut into his mouth while scanning his surroundings. Who is eating donuts? Did anyone notice it? Seeing Garp waving his fists in anger, no one around him answered. Garp, who was asking for trouble, could only smile bitterly at Sengoku, and then picked up the report that Sengoku threw over. While watching, he also said it out loud so that everyone in the conference hall could hear it. Vice Admiral Guion successfully handled the outbreak of the Demon King of Elegia Song, covered the evacuation of the crowd, and repelled the Demon King. Ha 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 ha. As expected of Guillaume, the little guy did a great job. Before reading the information, Garp was already laughing. Although the Demon King of Song disappeared in the end, Garp was still convinced that the other party was gone. What's more, Guillaume's achievement this time will be of great benefit to her in competing for the Marine's 6th Admiral. Everyone in the conference room was stunned when they heard the news. The faces of the admirals did not change much, but the expressions of many vice admirals became much stiffer. Guillaume is the first person under the new generation of admirals. Seeing that she is unwilling to compete for the opportunity to be promoted to admiral, many vice admirals are eager to try. But now it seems that the situation seems to have changed. After everyone in the conference room had absorbed the news, Sengoku coughed and said, Guillaume did a good job this time. The evaluation team has added a lot of points. You still need to work harder. Hearing the unfamiliar word, assessment team, some vice admirals who couldn't hold back immediately started asking questions. Evaluation team. May I ask Marshal Sengoku what this is? Why did the Guillaume vice admiral receive extra points? Sengoku looked at the 3 admirals, Garp and Crane standing aside, and said. In fact, when the concept of Marine's 6th Admiral was first proposed, we had already established an evaluation team. In addition to several senior executives of Marine, there were also people from world government. Of course, this is not particularly important. It is just an assessment of your position and overall quality. The final result depends on your strength. After hearing Sengoku's explanation, many vice admirals breathed a sigh of relief and turned their attention to the person at the front of the vice admiral crowd, Jaji. From the current point of view, Guillaume is unwilling to compete for the admiral spot. As the first Marine vice admiral under Guillaume, they still have 2 spots to compete for. That is the admiral's position after all. The temptation brought by the 2 words, admiral, is something that none of them can refuse. As for the strong folk mentioned by Marshal Sengoku, in their opinion, no matter how strong the strong folk are, they are still not as strong as they are who have a professional background. So I didn't pay much attention to it. The meeting was still going on, and after Sengoku said a few more things, he announced a big news. Marine Shinzo Admiral's dual quota will be held in half a year. This means there is not much time left for vice admirals. After all, in this generation of vice admiral, except for Guillaume and Cake, there is a clear gap between everyone else and admiral's true strength. If you want to compete for the admiral spot, you must improve your strength within this 6 months. Not only must their strength be improved, but they must also perform well in front of Marine and world government in order to gain points from the so-called evaluation team. After the meeting, Zephyr, who had been huddled in the corner silently, stood up. I want to take this class of students out to practice and practice. Hearing Zephyr's words, Sengoku subconsciously refused. No, the whole world is in chaos now. There is an unknown dawn outside, and it would be dangerous to go out now. Upon hearing Sengoku's refusal, Zephyr immediately retorted. You also know that the world is in chaos right now. Marine is currently busy with Marine's 6th Admiral. Everyone is training their own strength, and they don't even have time to go to sea. If we don't go to quell the pirates in the world now, I don't know how many people will die. This time can also exercise the strength of the new generation. Why don't you let me go? Don't you think I can't fight anymore? Zephyr's retort made Sengoku silent for a moment. Looking at his friend's appearance, Garp couldn't help but say. Okay, Sengoku, you are too careful. This is not going to the new world. There are no powerful guys in those places in the world. It is just suitable for this group of students to train. You must know that Lin Chen, the same age, went directly to the new world after graduation. Went to exercise in new world. Sengoku and Zephyr were both stunned when they heard the word, Lin Chen, but they couldn't help but sigh when they saw Garp's careless look. After a long time, Sengoku finally made a decision. Okay, but remember to come back when Marine Shinzo Admiral is promoted. I don't want you not to be there then. Zephyr grinned, revealing a white fang. Don't worry, none of the current admirals were my former students. I, Zephyr, don't want to be famous. Everyone needs to know me. I just hope there are fewer pirates in the world. After saying that, Zephyr turned and left, leaving everyone with a cool figure behind him. This guy. Sengoku looked at Zephyr's back and could only smile and shake his head. Chapter 18 Zephyr Lin Chen. Lin Chen didn't know anything about what happened in Marine. At this moment, he was lying on the beach enjoying the rare winter sunshine. After parting ways with Guillaume, he returned to Windmill Village with his entire family. Counting the time, 1513 was about to pass, and Lin Chen was also thinking about the future. Since the surprise attack on the world government, the world has become more and more chaotic. Even if the world government tried to hide the surprise attack on Mariejois, it would be useless. Pirates from all over the world began to cause trouble. Marine's jurisdiction over various places has also been weakened a lot. And the momentum of pirates causing trouble all over the world has become more and more intense, much more than the era of great pirates after Roger's death. Brother, grill the fish for us. In the distance, Perona greeted Lin Chen loudly, calling him back from his own world. Seeing a group of little girls around Perona chirping and looking here, Lin Chen threw aside the banana leaves on his face, and a tiger got up and pounced in the distance. Ha ha ha, I'm coming. Ah, run. Lin Chen's bad taste shocked several little girls and fled in all directions, leaving only Lin Chen laughing. At this moment, he just wants to cherish this relaxing time. Anyway, he has top-notch strength. Let's wait until next year to talk about next year. ... A few months later, East Blue. A warship floated alone on the sea. Take a closer look at the Marines staggering around on the ship. If outsiders saw it, they might think it was a Marine team with extremely poor discipline. Teacher Zephyr. When can we go back? A beautiful girl on the boat was leaning lazily on the guardrail, her expression hard to conceal her exhaustion. Zephyr sat blankly on the bow of the boat, staring at the endless sea in the distance, feeling slightly confused in his mind. However, after hearing what Ain said, he said patiently, "This is the last sea area. We can go back after cleaning it." Bins on the side also had the same doubts as Zephyr, and couldn't help but ask, why are there so few pirates in East Blue? This is so different from the other 3 seas. Hearing Bins's question, Zephyr looked at him approvingly. There are so many students. Although these past few months have been very hard and we have eliminated many pirates from other 3 seas, as a Marine, we must maintain our observation skills at all times. At this moment, except for a few students such as Binzi Ain, most of the students were lying on the deck like dead dogs from exhaustion. Although Zephyr had no expression on his face, he was still very distressed. In the past few months, he had watched how much this group of students had done, and it had far exceeded his expectations. After hearing Bins's question, Zephyr thought for a moment before replying, maybe East Blue's Marines have good quality. After all, this is Garp's hometown, and that guy comes back often. I see. Bins showed a look of understanding, and his eyes were bright. As expected of Mr. Garp. The hometown of Marine heroes is just different. Zephyr couldn't help but smile when he heard this. Yes, there are many strong people coming out of East Blue. Ain on the other side was a little confused. Isn't East Blue known as the weakest sea area? How come there are so many strong people? There seems to be no one else in the Marine except Mr. Garp. Ha 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 ha. East Blue has produced so many strong men that we can't even count them. And they are all top-notch strong men. Zephyr laughed as if he had thought of something, which made Ain and Bins at the side confused. Zephyr looked at Ain and Bins and then patiently explained, and the surrounding Marine students quickly gathered around. After all, Teacher Zephyr has always had a straight face. Now it is a rare opportunity to hear Teacher Zephyr talk about his experiences. You don't even know that the number 1 player in East Blue is named Rox. He is so far away from this era. Rox. Everyone around was stunned when they heard this unfamiliar name, obviously they had never heard of it. Zephyr then briefly talked about Rox, but the news revealed shocked all the Marine students. Rox had a lot of crew members on the ship back then. Kaido, Whitebeard, Charlotte Linlin, Akoku. These are all big pirates today. Just imagine how scary Rox was back then. What? Zephyr's words made the people around him look confused. Kaido, Whitebeard, and Charlotte Linlin are 3 heavyweights. But I didn't expect that these people were actually on the same boat. Everyone immediately began to speculate about Rox's strength, and at the same time they were also curious about what happened to this person later. How come they have never heard of such a terrifying and powerful man? However, seeing that Zephyr didn't seem to want to talk anymore, they had no choice but to suppress their anxiety and listen patiently to Zephyr's next words. Everyone knows that the second strongest man in East Blue, Roger, the Pirate King, was finally executed in Logue Town. It can be considered that the fallen leaves have returned to their roots. Zephyr then told some stories about how he met Roger when he was young. The students around him were so intoxicated that they wanted to immediately transform into Marine Admiral and fight Roger for 300 rounds. But now Roger has turned into a handful of Lois, and they are still far away from Marine Admiral. The third strong man in East Blue is that guy Garp. I won't say more. After all, you all grew up listening to his legend. The fourth one is the son of that guy Garp. His strength is also a mystery. If everything goes well, maybe there will be a 4th Admiral in Marine now. Ain. Mr. Garp's son. Mr. Garp actually has a son, we have never heard of it. Zephyr didn't seem to want to talk more about dragons, so he just dealt with it casually. After everyone heard what Zephyr said about the strong man, they were all yearning for it, but they didn't expect that there was another person. There is also a little guy who comes from East Blue. It was Garp who brought him back to Marine Base. After saying that, Zephyr looked at Bins and Ain again, and smiled as if he remembered something. Although you two, Bins Ain, are said to be the most powerful students in my class, you are still a bit underwhelmed in front of that guy. Ha 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 ha. Ain felt a little unhappy when he heard what Zephyr said, and he puffed up his mouth and said angrily, "What are you talking about, Teacher Zephyr? Apart from the current Marine 3 Admiral, is there anyone who was more powerful than us back then?" Quote. Then Ain thought for a moment and added, "Except for the Guion Vice Admiral, of course." I will also become as strong as the Gion Vice Admiral in the future. So she doesn't count. Seeing Ain's attitude as a little girl, Zephyr burst into laughter. That guy's name is Lin Chen, and his performance is even better than the 3 Sakazukis back then. Lin Chen. When they heard the name, Ain and Binz were stunned for a moment. They seemed to have some impression of the name. Chapter 19 Surprise Attack on Zephyr. Advertise here. That guy Lin Chen. When talking about Lin Chen, Zephyr's eyes also revealed bursts of memories. Ah, I seem to remember. It was Lin Chen who was fighting against Kaido. Ain on the other side suddenly exclaimed, and at the same time, Lin Chen's deeds began to appear in her mind. Ain. I heard that Lin Chen Vice Admiral went to sea with Gion Vice Admiral. Talking about this, Binz also began to have an impression. It turns out to be the Vice Admiral. I seem to have seen it somewhere. Ain blinked her beautiful eyes, obviously a little surprised. I didn't expect that Vice Admiral was also Teacher Zephyr's disciple. On the other hand, Binz began to think deeply again, and he hesitated a little in his words. It's a pity that I heard that Lin Chen, Vice Admiral, was seriously injured after the battle with Kaido and died. Alas. After hearing that Lin Chen was dead, Ain's mood, which had just risen, became depressed again. Zephyr, who knew the inside story, let out a long sigh and said, if this little guy hadn't had this happen, then Admiral would have had him now. What a pity. Alas. Ain shook his head, it would be such a pity if it was Lin Chen Vice Admiral. I really can't compare to him. There was silence on the warship for a while, and the young students didn't know what to say. After all, he was a senior brother a few years above them and a respected Marine general. They didn't know much about him, but it was difficult to interrupt. However, Zephyr quickly regained his composure. Okay, hurry up and clean up the last sea area and go home. Go back and give it to you. I will keep it until the promotion ceremony of the 6th Admiral. You should also come and take a good look, and strive to become a Marine Admiral. Oh, the Marine students burst into cheers after hearing Zephyr's words. There are still 3 months until the Marine 6th Admiral selection. If East Blue can be cleared within a month, it means they have a 2-month holiday. What's more, judging from the situation after arriving in East Blue, there are not many pirates in East Blue. It seems that they will be able to go back soon. Teacher Zephyr. There is a small boat in the distance. A student standing on the high ground seemed to have discovered something and quickly reported it to Zephyr. Zephyr was furious when he saw the student panicking. Why are you panicking? Let's see if it's a pirate or something. If it's a pirate, we'll go there. The student's panic at this time was not relieved. Instead, he was stammering and speechless. Yes, it's Whitebeard. What? Zephyr immediately couldn't sit still when he heard the words Whitebeard. The faces of the students on the side also turned pale. What a joke. Why is Whitebeard here? What should I do? Why did I meet Whitebeard in East Blue? Looking at the students below, they suddenly became nervous, and Zephyr immediately spoke out to calm them down. Why are you panicking? Is it possible that I can still leave you behind? Ain on the other side also spotted the boat in the distance and felt confused at the same time, but he immediately spoke out to comfort the students around him. Don't worry, everyone. Whitebeard always takes that big ship when he goes to sea. How could he take such a small ship? He is probably wrong. After hearing Ain's analysis, many people gradually calmed down. On the contrary, the student who observed the boat at the beginning had a bitter look on his face. But that guy really looks like Whitebeard. After hearing the student's words, Zephyr stood up and looked at the boat heading towards them in the distance. Looking from a distance, a huge figure stood on the bow of the ship, holding a long knife in his hand. The weapon looked somewhat similar to Whitebeard's weapon. In fact, it wasn't just weapons. After seeing the man's height, Zephyr had to admit that this guy was indeed somewhat similar to Whitebeard. However, that person did not have the same sense of oppression as Whitebeard, and only those students who had not seen Whitebeard in person and only heard about his appearance would admit his mistake. After thinking about it, Zephyr felt a lot more relaxed. He waved his hand and said, okay, that guy is not Whitebeard, he is just somewhat similar. But I am also curious about who that guy is and why he is coming towards our warship. When the boat approached, the people on the warship saw the giant's appearance clearly. Whitebeard looks silly, with the iconic crescent-shaped upward curving Whitebeard, but it is slimmer and longer than Whitebeard. Although the body is tall and fat, it does not feel as oppressive as Whitebeard's. Especially the 2 short legs make this man a bit funny. But Zephyr felt a bit of pressure from this man. Before he could get close to the warship, Zephyr said, hey, who are you? Don't come any closer. Because there was no pirate flag on the other party's boat, Zephyr didn't know if they were pirates for a while, but they didn't look like kind people. Hey, is this the former Marine Admiral Black Arm Zephyr? A sharp, strange laughter came from behind the giant opposite. A short old woman wearing leopard print and wearing a cane walked out from behind Whitebeard. Zephyr looked at the man in front of him and subconsciously felt familiar, but he did not remember who this man was. What's the matter? If nothing happens, please leave. Don't hinder us from handling official business. After saying that, Zephyr saw that the other party didn't seem to hear him at all and was just introducing himself. I am Barkingham Stussy, and this is my son, Edward Wilbur. Of course, you can also call him Whitebeard too. After all, he is Whitebeard's son. Hearing Stussy's words, Zephyr's pupils were shocked. Are you kidding? That guy Whitebeard will have a son. Why have I never heard of it? Hearing Zephyr's words, Whitebeard's eyes widened. He picked up the long knife and was about to slash at Zephyr, but was stopped by Stussy. Stussy. Of course it's normal that you don't know. Whitebeard and I were lovers at the time. Whitebeard left after I got pregnant. That guy was such a heartless man, leaving only Wilbur and me. Now we are preparing to find him. Where is he? Zephyr didn't speak, and dark armament hockey began to appear on both wrists. HMPH. That's just right. Don't blame me for taking you back to Marine. At this time, Zephyr was too lazy to listen to Stussy's nonsense. He knew that this battle was inevitable from the moment Whitebeard too was about to take action due to disagreement. The other party seems to have malicious intentions, and his goal is directly at this ship. Stussy couldn't help but snorted as she watched Zephyr prepare to take action. My dear son, this bad guy is going to capture us and prevent you from finding your father. Kill him and those on the ship. Hearing his mother's words, Whitebeard too picked up the long knife and jumped towards Zephyr instantly. Zephyr didn't expect the opponent to be so fast, so he could only resist with his arms covered with weapons. Boom. After a dull sound, the smoke dispersed. I saw that Zephyr's legs had sunk into the deck, and the armor color on his arms had faded a bit. Wilbur, who failed to hit the target, grabbed the handle of the knife and swept Zephyr back again. Zephyr took a few steps back and took off his glasses at the same time, feeling a little more solemn in his heart. This guy, Chapter 20 Zephyr's Whitebeard E. Advertise here. Ain, Bins, you two take the others and retreat to the back first. Zephyr also kept an eye on Whitebeard too at all times. As expected, when Zephyr spoke, Whitebeard too suddenly attacked Zephyr with a long knife. Ah, Whitebeard too came to Zephyr, roared, raised his sword and slashed at Zephyr's neck. And Zephyr did not stand still. As a former Marine admiral, he was already proficient in physical skills, not to mention having decades of combat experience. He crouched down and directly avoided Wilbur's attack, while pointing his finger towards Wilbur's waist. Click on the gap in between. Finger pistol. Sting. As an improved version of the finger pistol has a very good penetrating effect when facing huge enemies like Wilbur. Coupled with Zephyr's superb armament hockey, Wilbur's body would be severely damaged by this blow. However, the reality is not what Zephyr thought. After being attacked by Zephyr, Wilbur was stunned for a moment, but the next second he roared and expertly rotated the long knife in his hand and stabbed Zephyr straight. This guy is okay. Zephyr was surprised, but he did not stop moving his hands. He put one hand on the ground and turned sideways to avoid the attack of the long knife. At the same time, Zephyr's legs also lit up with white light and threw it at Wilbur. Tempest kick. Cut. Two sharp white lights cut towards Wilbur. Wilbur held the long knife across his chest with one hand to block one, but the other cut open Wilbur's shoulder in an instant, and blood suddenly spattered. Wilbur was in pain from this blow, and with his eyes red, he swung the long knife and slashed at Zephyr again. This time, Zephyr used his hands lightly and easily jumped into the air to avoid the blow. At the same time, he immediately retreated and separated himself from Will. Zephyr was shocked when he saw the wound on Wilbur's shoulder. The wound that was bleeding had stopped bleeding now, and even the cut wound began to slowly recover. Monster resilience. Thinking to himself, Zephyr took out another small bottle from his arms and took a deep breath. Wilbur on the opposite side also began to become cautious at this time. The purple-haired old man in front of him was the most powerful person he had ever seen since he went to sea. The guy before couldn't survive 3 swords in his hands, but the man in front of him was able to dodge 3 swords and still cause damage to him. Especially when Zephyr tapped him with his finger just now, his body is still a little aching, but he will be almost recovered in a few breaths. At this moment, Stussy, who had been watching from the side, suddenly sneered. I didn't expect that the once famous black arm Zephyr would become like this now. Time is so cruel. Hearing Stussy's taunt, Zephyr ignored it and turned around to deal with Wilbur in front of him. On the other hand, Ain couldn't sit still and immediately retorted. HMPH. You shameless guys, I never saw you come out when Teacher Zephyr was so powerful. Now let me show you how powerful Teacher Zephyr was when he was young. As he spoke, blue light began to appear on Ain's hand, and at the same time, a Shao came directly behind Zephyr and used his ability on Zephyr. The moment the blue light came into contact with Zephyr, Zephyr immediately felt his body begin to change. First, my body gradually became full of energy, and then even my asthma seemed to be much better. Stussy obviously noticed something was wrong and immediately asked Wilbur to interrupt the two of them. Son, go and interrupt them. Attack the group of Marines behind Zephyr. At this moment, 2 vines spread out from the deck and wrapped around Wilbur. Bin stood in the crowd, twisting his hands constantly, manipulating the vines to delay Wilbur's pace. However, at this moment, Wilbur held the long knife tightly with both hands, and the dark armament hockey and the long knife wrapped around his entire body. Ha ha! Wilbur roared angrily, pointed his long knife at the crowd where Binz was, and a slash instantly erupted. Seeing this scene, Zephyr was shocked and immediately ducked between the two to block the slash. Behind him, Ain's face was pale at this moment. As a user with the ability of the regression fruit, he could regress everything he came into contact with, including life. However, due to her own lack of strength, and the fact that this ability consumes a lot of money for a strong person like Zephyr, Zephyr's age can only be set back by 3 years, but this has already made her somewhat overdrawn. On the other side, Zephyr stood in front of a group of students. There was not much time left for him, so he could only subconsciously cover his body with armed colors. Iron body. Ding. There was a crisp sound of metal colliding, the smoke dispersed, and all the marine students were safe. Wow. Poof. After sustaining the attack, Zephyr spat out a pool of blood, with disbelief in his eyes. This guy can use emission. The person in front of me has mastered the weapon color to such an advanced level that even emission can be skillfully released through slashing. And among the current marines, only Guion is the only one who uses swordsmanship and can slash with emission. But that is a strong man who can compete with Marine Admiral. In other words, in terms of swordsmanship and mastery of armament hockey, Wilbu is almost as good as Guion. HMPH. Son. Go around this old guy and kill all his students. As long as you kill their mothers, they will be very happy. Your father will also pay more attention to you. Okay, Mom. Stussy once again bewitched Wilbur's ear, which made Zephyr on the opposite side suddenly feel bad. Binz. You take Ain and everyone else to retreat first. I'll stop him. At this time, Ain, who was lying weakly on the ground, frowned and his lips twisted and wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Seeing Binz still standing there, Zephyr couldn't help but yelled, "What are you still standing there for? Let's go." After being yelled by Zephyr, Binzi woke up like a dream and quickly picked up Ain and a group of students on the ground to prepare to evacuate in a small boat. But just as Zephyr asked Binz to retreat, Wilbu attacked again with a long knife. A cold light burst out from the long sword, and it struck Zephyr in the face in an instant. I am not a cow or sheep left to be slaughtered. With observation hockey, Zephyr dodged on the spot to avoid this slashing attack, then attached the dark armament hockey to his hands and launched a frantic attack on Wilbu's stomach. 11 EC. Chapter 21 Lin Chen comes to the rescue. Bang, bang, bang. The muffled sound of fists colliding with flesh continued to sound. Zephyr wrapped his arms around armament hockey and fired emission into Wilbu's abdomen. Under Zephyr's attack, Wilbu still suffered a lot of damage even though his whole body was covered with armament hockey. Zephyr's attack made Wilbu look ferocious, and the emission caused huge damage to his body and also made him go crazy. Ah, Wilbu's eyes were red, his eyes were gnawing at others, and he clenched the long knife in his hand and slashed towards Zephyr's face. The next moment, Zephyr nimbly dodged the slash again. What Zephyr didn't expect was that Wilbu followed his movements instantly. Then he struck at him again. What a fast move. Such beastly instincts. In order to avoid Wilbu's attack, Zephyr can only rely on shaving to move at high speed, and the same is true for Wilbu. From the beginning, Wilbu could barely keep up with Zephyr's speed, but now Wilbu has begun to rival Zephyr. Upon discovering this, Zephyr's expression began to change. After all, he was old. If the battle could not be resolved in a short time, he would probably become weak. After thinking clearly, Zephyr used all the strength in his body to increase his speed again. At the same time, he also knew that he could not remain so passive and must take the initiative to attack to reverse the situation. Zephyr's sudden increase in speed made Wilbu stunned. He was about to catch Zephyr, but he didn't expect that the opponent would burst out even faster. Without thinking much, Wilbu immediately followed him again, but the Zephyr in front disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then a violent face appeared in front of Wilbu. Damn pirates. With these words behind him, Zephyr clenched his hands into fists. An indescribable wave of destruction lingered on his hands, and then he punched Wilbu hard in the abdomen. Puff. After receiving this blow from Zephyr, Wilbu's body instantly flew backwards, and he spat out the blood in his mouth as if it was free. Zephyr did not give up when Wilbu's body was flying upside down. He knew that the healing ability of a giant-like monster like Wilbu would be very fast, and he had to keep up with the output immediately, otherwise the blow just now was too powerful. Herb will recover quickly. So before Wilbu landed, Zephyr came to Wilbu again, picked up the heavy hammer with both hands and hit Wilbu hard on the head. Just hearing a bang, Wilbu fell into the bottom of the warship, his eyes turned white, and his whole body became half dead. After doing all this, Zephyr couldn't support his body and fell to his knees on the deck. Ha. Kneeling on the ground, Zephyr was breathing heavily like a wind turbine. After all, he is an old man and cannot sustain a long battle now. It has been about a moment since he and Wilbur fought, but the opponent is obviously not a weakling. He tried his best to overdraw his body and knock him out with 2 explosive moves. Zephyr is now exhausted. While Zephyr was still recovering, he suddenly experienced waves of dizziness in his brain, followed by a feeling of weakness emanating from his body, making him look much more haggard. Turning his head to look, he saw that Ain on the other side had passed out, and the ability to regress the fruit was naturally released. At this time, Zephyr's age and body had returned to what it was 3 years ago. This feeling is really uncomfortable. Shaking his head, Zephyr stood up and looked at Stussy aside with cold eyes. Stussy was stung by Zephyr, and her body suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Then she immediately screamed at the top of her lungs and kept shouting Wilbu's name. At this moment, under the perception of Zephyr observation Hokage, Wilbu, who was obviously unconscious, began to twitch slowly when he heard Stussy calling his name, as if he was about to wake up next moment. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Zephyr naturally wouldn't let Stussy continue shouting. He came directly in front of Stussy and knocked him unconscious. Just when Zephyr breathed a sigh of relief, there were a series of noises behind him, followed by Wilbu's low voice that was almost like a beast's roar. What did you do to my mother? The roar coming from behind made Zephyr feel bad for a moment, and he subconsciously turned around to look. However, at that moment, a long knife appeared in front of him and slashed towards his neck. Seeing this, Zephyr could only tighten his muscles and try his best to avoid the blow with his weak body. Just when Zephyr barely escaped this fatal blow, Wilbu's long knife had already slashed towards Zephyr's arm. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Zephyr was extremely weak at this moment and could not avoid this blow at all. Zephyr could already imagine that he was about to lose his arm, and that the student's lives and his own life were not guaranteed. Bins on the other side was already trying to activate the fruit's ability, and the green vines were attacking Wilbu frantically, trying to stop him. The sky became extremely dark at this moment, heavy clouds accumulated, and countless silver lightnings and lightning flashed through the clouds. In an instant, a thunder dragon descended and hit Wilbu. Lin Chen slowly descended from the sky in a black robe, and a strong wind blew his robes. Two red eyes stared at Zephyr motionless through the MA Chapter 22 butterfly effect. Advertise here. Lin Chen's appearance silenced everyone present. Both the exhausted Zephyr and the marine students in the distance were all staring at the figure in the sky motionless. Hongyun's black robe, white mask, and scarlet eyes all indicate that the person in front of him is the leader of Dawn, Madara. Many timid marine students have even felt their legs weak and collapsed on the ground. After all, the name of a person and the shadow of a tree have been less than a year since Lin Chen conquered the Holy Land, and the power still exists. Among the crowd, Zephyr performed slightly better. Although he had already felt huge waves in his heart, he knew that he had to stand up at this time. Combined with Lin Chen's attack on Wilbu just now, Zephyr felt a little more at ease. At least the person in front of him did not necessarily have bad intentions. Otherwise, it wasn't Wilbu who was knocked unconscious just now, but him. Thinking of this, Zephyr looked up at Lin Chen in the sky and said, "The famous leader of Dawn, Madara, I wonder what you are doing here. Are you planning some conspiracy to subvert the world?" Standing in the air, Lin Chen just looked at Zephyr. His eyes lingered on the Madara white spots on Zephyr's temples for a while, and he couldn't help but recall them in his mind. "Teacher Zephyr, I will be your family from now on. You can raise me as your son. In this way, I can be regarded as the official second generation in marine school." Ha 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 ha. "No, Teacher Zephyr, you don't have to use your hands to train me. It hurts. I really can't eat it, Teacher Zephyr. I won't come if you do this again next time." Whoops. Damn it. If Teacher Zephyr were here, he would definitely not abandon you. "You go. I'll stop Kaido." Until there was a trance in his mind, as if the battle at Marineford had come again that day, and the double image in front of Lin Chen began to slowly condense. All this happened in just a blink of an eye. Lin Chen just heard Zephyr's question and said, "No, I just passed by here and was curious when I saw the fighting happening here." Zephyr's eyes lit up when he heard this, and then he said, "As an enemy of the world government, you have gone against Marine and the world government several times. Will you save us?" Lin Chen watched Zephyr trying to figure out his purpose, so he had to spread his hands, pointed at Wilbu and said, No, I didn't mean to save you, I just accidentally struck him with a bolt of lightning." After thinking about it, Lin Chen continued, "Besides, we at Daybreak never kill innocent people indiscriminately, and we often help your marines clean up pirates. I wonder if you are interested in joining Daybreak." Zephyr did not speak this time and returned to the warship with his exhausted body. The surrounding students immediately gathered around him. Seeing many marine students surrounding Zephyr looking at him warily, Lin Chen turned around and disappeared, leaving behind a figure behind him. Before leaving, a low voice rang in everyone's ears. "Zephyr, go back and tell Sengoku, has your marine really become a dog of the world government? If so, the next Marineford will be the current Mariejois." Zephyr stared blankly at the place where Lin Chen disappeared in the sky. The gloomy weather began to disperse, and then beams of sunlight hit Zephyr's body. After hearing Lin Chen's words before leaving, Zephyr couldn't help clenching his fists. Is this a warning to Marine? What does this guy mean? Aren't Marine and Daybreak always enemies? His mind was filled with questions, but Zephyr did not say anything in the end, and then asked everyone to turn around and prepare to return to Naval Headquarters. Turn around and return to Naval Headquarters. There's big news to report this time. Teacher, do you still need us to clean up East Blue? No need. The last big battle in East Blue has almost defeated the pirates in East Blue. Go home. ... Lin Chen stood in the air and looked at the warships that were gradually moving away. He twisted his neck. With a crackling sound on his body, the dawn that had been silent for half a year was about to appear again. Where should we go? Let's clean up the pirates in the world first. As the words fell, a large pool of sand floated over in the distance, and the people standing on it were the Dawn members. Crocodile still had the cigar in his mouth, but he didn't light it. After all, he still held a small sugar in his arms. Although Enel is already 30 years old, he still looks like a bad boy, but he is much better than when he first met Lin Chen, and he no longer needs this guy to recharge the ship. As Monet develops her fruit abilities, she becomes a little cold and desolate, but those who are familiar with her know that this guy is actually very warm at heart. In addition to the three Logia masters at daybreak, Yi Xiao on the other side stood aside with a blind knife. Rocinante and Luo were holding hands and looking like they were talking and laughing. Old man Rayleigh was wearing sunglasses and lying on a lounge chair made of sand, feeling very comfortable. Jinbei and Tezzolo had already returned to the Fishmen Island, and Perona and Ace were not with them. They followed Rouge and continued to stay in Windmill Village. However, Ace has made an agreement with Lin Chen that when he reaches adulthood, he will go to sea to prove himself, and Perona will follow when the time comes. According to Perona, as Ace's aunt, she has the responsibility to monitor Ace to prevent him from going astray. When everyone came to Lin Chen stretched out his hand towards the sea. Countless branches appeared from his hands, and the dawn was resurrected again. Let's go. Go to North Blue to quell the turmoil first. The auction was held in the country of Sika at the beginning. I don't know what has become there now, but I heard from my elder brother that there is a lot of turmoil in North Blue. The rule of Dawn seems to be a little difficult. Everyone agreed, and then Dawn began to sail towards North Blue. Although East Blue could not be said to have become Dawn's territory, the pirates had almost disappeared. The influence of marine and world government in East Blue is very little. Except for one Logue town that still has some influence, the other places are no different. On the contrary, many people know that Dawn has killed the celestial dragons, and they are happy from the bottom of their hearts and celebrate Dawn. On the other side, Marine 6 Admiral promotion ceremony was in full swing. A new round of planning has also begun in the world government. 5 elders. Although there was a big fuss last year due to daybreak, this year's World Summit will still be held. One is to see how many participating countries are loyal to the world government, and the other is the issue of supplementing the world government's combat power. Even if Marine 6 admirals are still not enough, so we have to think of other ways. Yes. Seconded. Also, bring back Vegapunk. That guy's Seraph plan sounds very exciting. You can give him permission to create a strong Seraph. Seconded. SK. Chapter 23 Eternal Hell. See Circle Calendar 1514, the World Government Conference held every 4 years did not stop because of Mariejois' heavy blow. This year, more participating countries came to participate in the meeting. Along with the appearance of countless new faces, some old faces that were common in previous years disappeared, such as the representative of the Kingdom of Goa from East Blue. CP0 stood ready at the entrance of Mariejois, looking carefully at the passing franchisees with sharp eyes. Many people did not dare to look at him. The members of CP0 did not only have the task of watching the gate. Before coming here, the 5 elders had already ordered another important task. Observe which franchise countries have not arrived. Therefore, they watched every passing representative of the franchise country very carefully, for fear of any mistakes. After all, as the guards of the celestial dragons are now completely damaged. If they fail to do this task, it is difficult to guarantee whether the 5 elders will chop them into pieces and feed them to the dogs. As franchised countries from all over the world entered the field one after another, a list was also sent to 5 elders by CP0. The legal martial god Wuchuli Sheng looked at the list in his hand and fell into deep thought, then said. There are many countries in the scene with names like East Blue and North Blue. It seems that these two places have been brainwashed by daybreak. The environmental martial god on the side said. It would be fine if it was just East Blue and North Blue. At least the Grand Line franchise countries did not betray the world government. The martial god of agriculture agreed with the martial god of environment and said. The strength of the participating countries in Sihai is just that, and it will not have any effect on us. As long as we ensure the rule of the Grand Line, it is enough. In a poor place like Sihai, there are only a few countries that need attention. Hearing the indifferent words of the 5 elders, the financial god of war frowned and said. If we abandon the 4 seas, wouldn't they all be occupied by Dawn? The legal martial god glanced at the financial martial god and said. There are just some old, weak, sick and disabled people all over the world. Give it to them if you want it at Dawn. What you need to rule the world is force, not the hearts of the people. The other 5 elders all nodded when they heard the words of the legal martial god. Anyway, there are no strong people in the world, so give it to them. Looking around, the 5 elders all had no objections to the 4 seas issue. The legal martial god continued. The purpose of convening the World Summit this time is firstly to see the loyalty of these participating countries, secondly to form a combat organization that can compete with Daybreak, and thirdly to supplement the power of Mariejois. Do you have any questions? The god of agriculture and wealth offered advice. The first problem is easy to solve. We don't need to know the loyalty of the franchised countries. We just need to use the excuse of entering Mariejois for further studies to keep important leaders and their children here. The legal martial god nodded. Hostages are also a good idea, second my opinion. Seconded. As the first question was passed, everyone began to discuss the second question. Legal martial god. In addition to Marine's high-end combat power, let's also release some of the criminals from Impel Down. Farming martial god. Impel Down. Are you going to release the criminals from the 6th floor prison? Are those criminals easy to control? Financial god of war. Everything in the world is valuable. What these guys want most is freedom. Form them into a combat organization and grant the same authority to Shichibukai. I don't believe they won't be moved. Legal martial god. Second. At this time, the scientific defense god of war who had been silent finally spoke up, and his words were like a bombshell that shocked everyone around him. Collect Marine's high-end combat power and the blood of Shichibukai and impel down prison criminals on the 6th floor, and increase the amount to make Seraphim. Talking to the pirates in the New World. It would be best if the blood can be obtained peacefully, but it is impossible to send Marine Admiral to March New World, we just need to collect their blood. We can cooperate with the pirates of New World when necessary. The legal martial god was stunned for a long time, and then said, this is indeed a good plan, I second it. Seconded. Although this suggestion shocked the other 4-5 elders, now is an extraordinary time after all, and anything can be used as long as it can be turned into a force against Daybreak. Afterwards, the 5 elders discussed the third issue and immediately convened the World Summit after checking all the 3 plans to fill in the gaps. When the 5 elders proposed at the meeting that franchised countries could further their studies at Mariejois, everyone was shocked. Now that Mariejois' celestial dragons are dead and wounded, the kings of the franchised countries can clearly feel Mariejois' desertedness along the way. At this time, the 5 elders said that they could further their studies in Mariejois. The meaning behind this is self-evident. Is it possible that some of them should be selected to become celestial dragons? All kinds of speculations ran wildly through the minds of the kings, and in their passion they forgot the risks behind them. The 5 elders looked at the crazy expressions on the faces of the kings of each franchise country, and there was an imperceptible indifference in their eyes. The World Summit was held smoothly, no one made any trouble, and everyone achieved a result that they thought they were very satisfied with. As soon as the World Summit ended, the 5 elders immediately came to the Impel Down prison. In this matter of selecting combat strength, they still have to do it personally. After all, the members selected are the members who will fight against Daybreak in the future. Impel Down, also known as the Undersea Prison, houses various pirate criminals captured by Marine, each of whom is a famous pirate in the outside world. Especially the 6th floor of the prison, where some extremely vicious criminals are imprisoned, and every one taken out can cause a bloody storm. Such as old acquaintance, Golden Lion. The 5 elders, led by Impel Down Warden Magellan, came to the 6th level of the prison, Eternal Hell. Before the 6 people could enter, they heard the noise of many people in the distance. Bullet. Huh, are you this old, Shaki? You can't even beat a few young boys. Burn D. Waldo. Thank you for breaking your legs and escaping from prison. At that time, I thought you were a man. I also thought that I could hear from prison that you were doing something good outside. How many years have you come back? What a shame. Baloric. Maybe the dawn outside is really strong. Ha 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 ha. Does